Chapter 151. After Ush listened to the rules of the Greed Island game and learned about the card slots in the card book, he left the game's landing point. The condition for clearing this game was simple: collect cards numbered from 0 to 99. There were exactly 100 designated slots to store these numbered cards. In addition, there were 45 free slots, which, though fewer in number, could hold any type of card. To be honest, Ush was rather envious of this storage system. It already resembled a high-level storage ring. Oh, if only I could use this outside. I could carry so many things with me, Ush sighed wistfully as he walked down the stairs. Soon, Ush reached the base of the staircase and stepped onto a vast, open grassland. Who? A breeze carrying the scent of fresh grass drifted past, leaving Ush in unexpectedly high spirits. Still, those prying eyes are really annoying, Ush muttered, glancing toward the suspicious glances being cast his way from a distance. Maybe those players thought they were hidden well enough and far enough away to avoid detection. But for Ush, who had enhanced perception abilities, distance meant nothing. The players hiding thousands of meters away might as well have been standing a meter in front of him. He could see their every move clearly. TCH. So weak, yet they dare to tail others? Where do they get the guts? Ush muttered, shaking his head in disinterest. From his observation, their strength was pathetic. Even the smallest Greed Island monsters could take them down. With that level of skill, how many useful cards could they possibly be holding? Most likely, they each only had a basic theft card and maybe a return spell. At best, a few discard cards were all they could offer. They didn't even spark Ush's interest as targets. Come on, if you're going to rob someone, at least make sure they've got something worth taking. What good is it to rob someone who has nothing? Have you ever heard of a robber targeting the poor? Of course not, unless they've got some shady ulterior motive. Ignoring the would-be stalkers, Ush quietly waited for Nyan to arrive. He ended up waiting 20 minutes. What's going on? Confused, Ush looked up at the building above. He furrowed his brows. That's odd based on the time I heard earlier. 20 minutes should have been more than enough. Why isn't she down yet? He mumbled. If she still wasn't out in another 10 minutes, he decided, he'd go in and drag her out himself. With that thought, Ush leaned casually against a nearby pillar and waited. Tada! 5 minutes later, Ush heard footsteps. Looking up, he saw Nyan descending from the game's starting point. What took you so long? Ush asked. It was so fun. I ended up playing around for a bit, Nyan replied with a smile. No wonder. Ush chuckled, shook his head, and didn't press the issue further. Let's go, he said, motioning for Nyan to follow as he led her in a specific direction. They were headed to a city, Antiquiba, the bounty hub of Greed Island. Since they were both new to the game, Ush and Nyan didn't have a single Jenny to their names. And to do anything worthwhile here, they'd need some funds. So, what could be more important than using this opportunity to earn a fortune and chase their first gold plate in the bounty city? Besides, as a wealthy heiress, Nyan was bound to burn through cash. Counting on robbing a few low-level players wouldn't even come close to covering her expenses. In that case, collecting cards with designated numbers was the most efficient way to earn some fast money. Game. Nyan cheerfully collected anything she could find on the ground, converting it into cards and altering its appearance with ease. Stones, blades of grass, roots, even tiny insects. Please give me flowers. She kept tossing items back and forth between her hands like toys. What a shame. These useful props can't be used outside. If they could, I'd take my whole collection with me, she said wistfully. At her words, Ush's eye twitched involuntarily. Whoosh. Just then, a ball of aura flew toward them from the horizon, with a figure faintly visible inside. Pa! The next moment, the figure slammed into the ground just 5 meters in front of Ush and Nyan. A floating card book hovered in front of him as he eyed Ush with a mocking grin. Nyan was momentarily puzzled, but Ush narrowed his eyes. This guy didn't seem like the kind to be broke. Under Ush's gaze, the newcomer gave a look of disdain and raised a card from his book. Pa! Before he could even utter the card's incantation, Ush had already appeared in front of him and grabbed him by the throat. Master technique. The man's eyes widened in panic. He tried to reach for a return card from his book and prepare a spell. Too slow. Ush's right arm, which gripped the man's throat, transformed into white wax and quickly spread, sealing the man's mouth, hands, and legs. With the intruder completely restrained, Ush held him up effortlessly to prevent him from collapsing. Let's see what you've got, Ush said as he examined the man's card book. Just as he expected, this guy actually had some decent cards. Not an enormous haul, but still far better than most. 8 designated number cards, nice. 12 spell cards, not bad, he murmured as he calmly transferred all the cards into his own book. And just like that, less than an hour into his first real session on Greed Island, Ush secured his first jackpot. Chapter 152. After collecting all the cards from the intruder, Ush casually tossed the man aside. Then, taking Nyan with him, he continued heading toward Antiquiba. They had no other choice, although they now had some useful cards. Neither of them had registered a spell-based coordinate in any major city. Why didn't Ush just use his distance ability to go straight to Antiquiba? Mainly because Ush wanted to spend more time on the prairie. To be honest, in both his previous life and this one, Ush's only impression of grasslands came from photos. This was the first time he had seen one in person. So of course, he wasn't going to leave in a hurry. As Ush led Nyan forward, the player he'd left behind on the ground began to twitch anxiously. Chi wanted to scream, but with his mouth sealed shut, no sound came out. His face contorted with frustration, and he struggled to move despite his bound hands and feet. After a while, he finally managed to stand, barely. He couldn't walk, so hopping was his only option. It was going to be a long and miserable journey. Not that it mattered to Ush. The guy's current condition and whether or not he survived had nothing to do with him. He wasn't planning to undo the white wax restraint. If the guy could remove it himself, good for him. After walking for a while, Ush and Nyan finally approached the outskirts of Antiquiba. Ugh, what a rundown city, Nyan commented bluntly, staring at the shabby buildings ahead. Didn't expect this, Ush said, stroking his chin thoughtfully. The scene before them looked exactly like it did in the manga, nothing like the modernized, beautified updates from recent adaptations. It was like comparing a photo to the real thing. The buildings looked similar, sure, but in the photos, everything looked better. Still want to stay here? Nyan asked, glancing at him. Ush shook his head. Forget it. Let's go buy property in one of the other cities. What are the other cities like? Nyan asked, showing curiosity rather than disagreement. Ush smiled. You'll see for yourself soon enough. With that, he took Nyan's hand and led her into Antiquiba. Now that the grassland was behind them, Ush didn't plan to walk the rest of the way on foot. Once under Antiquiba's city banner, they got a better sense of the place. The streets were plastered with bounty notices, and the ground was littered with discarded reward flyers. It gave the whole city a grimy, cluttered feel. Ush frowned, clearly displeased by the mess. Having spent years living in hotels, Ush was someone with mild misophobia. Not severe, but enough to make dirty, chaotic environments bother him on a psychological level. Still, it wasn't unbearable. After steeling himself mentally, he led Nyan deeper into the bounty-ridden city. As they walked, Ush scanned the reward posters posted along the streets. My fruit tree is infested with bugs. Please help exterminate them and I'll give you pesticide. Looking for someone. My mom's a bit slow, if you find her, I'll give you the chamber pot passed down for 80 years. Reading these made Ush's eye twitch involuntarily. He had tens of thousands of complaints in his head, but no idea where to start. Obviously, most of these bounties were completely useless. Nyan, let's go, he said casually. After a few seconds without a response, Ush turned to look at her. To his surprise, Nyan was standing in front of a wall, eyes sparkling as she stared at a particular bounty poster. Confused, Ush walked over and followed her gaze. My wedding ring fell into the well. Please help me retrieve it. Reward, my cursed right hand. Ah, of course. It hit right on Nyan's soft spot. You want it? Ush asked. Yeah. Nyan nodded eagerly. Then let's go see what this is all about. Ush waved for her to follow. Nyan happily trotted after him and clung to his right arm, looking delighted. As they walked, they passed a large signboard. Antikiba Monthly Activity Board. This month is March, tree cutting contest in progress. Hey, look. It's March. There's a tree cutting contest going on. Nyan read out loud. It's useless. It's already late March. The contest's probably long over. If you want to compete now, your only option is the arm wrestling tournament, Ush replied, shaking his head. Oh, but the tree cutting one sounded fun, Nyan pouted. Alright, let's move. Didn't you want to complete the bounty mission? Let's hurry before someone else beats us to it, Ush said, smiling as he gently urged her forward. The two of them followed the address listed on the reward flyer. After turning left and right through several narrow streets, they finally reached the bounty's location. It was an ordinary-looking house. The only thing notable about it? It was the only one in the area with a well. Looks like this is the community's shared water source, Ush observed, glancing around at the surroundings. But Nyan wasn't interested in the architecture. She rushed to find the house's owner, the NPC who had posted the quest. The person who answered was a woman. And from Ush's perspective, there was no noticeable difference between her and a real human being. This realization made Ush take a sharp breath. Thinking back to Morel's use of deep purple to create clones, how that technique pushed his Nen usage to the limit. And yet here, there were dozens, maybe hundreds of such NPCs. Even an elite emitter-type Nen user couldn't manage this many avatars. It was staggering. Chapter 153. It was astonishing. When it came to precise control over human puppets, Ush knew the strongest was Morel. And even he could only precisely control around 50 at a time, with a hard cap of 216. Even Jing's companion was said to be stronger than Morel in terms of Nen finesse. But still, no one could manage the sheer number needed to operate several fully populated cities, and populate them with interactive NPCs and monsters across the entire island. Clearly, there was something more complex at work here. Ush narrowed his eyes at the woman in front of him. Did these NPCs even have internal organs? If they were truly built like real humans, the computational requirements to simulate that would be insane. Maybe the machine Ada and Elena sat on wasn't just managing the card book system. Maybe it was running everything. Alright, leave it to us. We'll find your ring for you. While Ush had been pondering the mystery of Greed Island's artificial population, Nyan had already finished speaking with the NPC who issued Mission 13. Then, she excitedly dragged Ush toward the nearby well. Ush, do you have a way to find the ring quickly? Nyan asked, eyes gleaming with hope. Ush didn't answer right away. Instead, he asked, did you ask what material the ring is made of? Not yet. Why? Does it make a difference? Nyan tilted her head in confusion. If it's magnetic, we can just use a magnet to retrieve it, Ush explained. Speed mattered here, he didn't want to waste time digging around blindly. Nyeon's eyes lit up in understanding and she immediately ran off to ask the NPC. A moment later, she returned with a cheerful smile. Got it. Let's go find a magnet now, Ush said, clapping his hands once. Finding a magnet wasn't difficult, they quickly tracked one down. Was it that no one had thought of this because of the mission's constraints? Or were the NPCs, while precise, simply not intelligent enough to make logical leaps? Ush didn't dwell on the unanswerable question and shrugged it off. Back at the house, they didn't even need a rope. Ush extended a length of hardened white wax from his right hand, fixed the magnet to the end, and carefully lowered it into the well. Once it reached the bottom, he stirred it slightly, then began to reel it back up. A knife? Nyeon blinked in surprise at the kitchen knife clinging to the magnet. Clink. Ush tossed the knife aside and sent the magnet down again. He had no interest in whatever potential murder weapon had been thrown down there. On the second try, they struck gold. Hey! It's the ring! It's the ring! Nyeon shouted gleefully, pointing at the sparkling band attached to the magnet. Looks like this wouldn't take long after all. Ush smiled as he pulled it out. Together, they returned the ring to the woman who had issued the quest. Wonderful. Thank you so much for finding my ring, she said, clearly moved. Here's your reward. She handed them a beautifully crafted card depicting the long-coveted cursed right hand. Hey, wait, can we even see the actual item? Nyeon asked, holding the card and suddenly realizing something. Ush blinked, then rubbed his chin. Good point. If you materialize the card, you won't be able to revert it back into card form. This item couldn't be taken outside of Greed Island either, so for now, they could only admire it as a card. If I can't see the real thing, what's the point? Nyeon grumbled, clearly disappointed. In that case, let's move on. We need to sell those numbered cards and get some funds, maybe buy a house here, Ush said, nudging her forward. Nyeon's eyes lit up again. Then, remembering something, she tugged at Ush's sleeve. Quick! Let's go now. As they hurried off, she asked, we only have 8 numbered cards. How much do you think we can sell them for? She wasn't even trying to keep her voice down. It sounded more like she was shopping for a luxury bag than discussing treasure. The irony was that now, one of them was the seller, and the other was buying. Still, given Nyeon's impulsive love for unusual items, Ush was lucky her trillion Jenny account was currently in his possession. Otherwise, she would have burned through it in no time. Don't worry. On Greed Island, numbered cards still fetch a pretty decent price, Ush said, even though he wasn't totally sure what the going rates were. Do you think? Maybe 10 billion? Nyeon asked, full of hope. Ush paused, then gave her a wry smile and shook his head. Not even close. We're looking at maybe 100 million total. These are just B rank cards, after all. Nyeon let out a disappointed sigh. Ush could only shake his head helplessly. It can't be helped. We only just entered the game, after all. As they chatted, they made their way toward the city's exchange center. Of course, their open discussion wasn't exactly subtle. Several nearby players overheard them, and some began breathing heavily, eyes filled with greed. Their stares were so obvious that it made Ush frown in irritation. But after taking a closer look, he realized that these players were all small fry. TCH. The kind of guys who probably didn't even have a numbered card in their books. Thinking about that, Ush lost interest immediately. Unfortunately, they hadn't lost interest in him. Just before he and Nyeon could reach the exchange, one of the players finally jumped out and blocked their path. Chapter 154. Buzz. Before the player who had just jumped out could say a word, Ush suddenly shouted, unleashing a terrifying aura like that of an abyssal beast. It surged over the surrounding players, swallowing them in its crushing intensity. Thud, thud, thud. The mental pressure hit like a shockwave. Several players instantly lost strength in their legs and collapsed to the ground, staring at Ush with terrified eyes. They didn't even dare to swallow. Drip. The next second, a warm stream of liquid trickled beneath player A. A yellow puddle spread out on the ground around him. No one laughed. The other players had nearly done the same, and if not for relieving themselves beforehand, they might have followed suit. Tap, tap, tap. Ush ignored the now humiliated player and led Nyan past him, continuing on toward the exchange building. Huff. Ha. Who was that? How can someone be that scary? One of the players gasped after Ush and Nyan disappeared inside. Several others stood frozen, their faces pale as they stared toward the exchange. Whoever he is, we don't want anything to do with him. We should get out of here. If he changes his mind, we won't be so lucky next time, said another, staggering off in a panic. Someone help me up. My legs are too weak. Help you? I can barely stand myself. Dream on. Meanwhile, inside the exchange, Ush and Nyan were finalizing a trade with the NPC shopkeeper. They were selling all of their serial number cards. And then... what the heck? Only 71 million for 8 numbered cards. Nyan exclaimed, clearly disappointed by the result. Please calm down, miss. Our pricing is completely fair, the NPC replied politely. B rank cards recycle for 10 million, and D rank cards for 1 million. Your total adds up to 71 million. Ush frowned slightly. 71 million sounded like a lot, but would it be enough to buy decent property on Greed Island? If not, they'd have to hustle harder. Fine, whatever. Give us a map too, Ush said, waving his hand. The exchange boss handed them 2 nearly identical cards, both titled Island Map. One was card number 100, and the other was number 101. The only difference. Number 100 had no place names, just blank geography. Number 101 included detailed place names and locations. Ush didn't hesitate and picked map number 101 with place names. He paid 650,000 for it without blinking. He and Nyan weren't here to rough it like Gon and Killua, they weren't about to buy the cheaper, blank map and try to fill it in manually. Then again, maybe Gon and Killua had gone for the 20,000 deny version because they were just flat broke at the time. With the map in hand, Ush reviewed the terrain and layout of Greed Island. Afterward, they picked up some water from the store for supplies and got ready to move on. Their next destination, Macedora. Wait, are we walking there? Nyan asked, clinging to Ush's arm. I heard the shopkeeper say it's hundreds of kilometers away. Relax. It's not that far, Ush said with a sly grin. Before Nyan could respond, Ush took her hand and stepped forward. In an instant, the landscape shifted. The bustling city vanished, replaced by a dense forest. There had been no sensation of movement or speed. The scene had simply changed. Where are we now? Nyan asked. Though she'd experienced this a few times already, she was still caught off guard by the sudden change. Ush smiled. This is the mountain the shopkeeper mentioned. We might run into some bandits here. Wanna take a look? Bandits? Meh. What's so interesting about them? Unless they're undead bandits, Nyan scoffed, shaking her head. Ush just shrugged and stepped forward again with Nyan. The next second, the scenery changed once more, this time to a vast gobi-like desert. Whoa. This looks just like the outskirts of Yorknu, Nyan said, surprised. Same dry air, flat rocky cliffs, and even the monsters. Wait, monsters? She squinted. Emerging from behind a stone ridge were several cyclops-like monsters, one-eyed creatures ranging in size from 2 to 20 meters. They look strong, Nyan gasped, pointing at them. Ush casually swung his arm backward, wham! And effortlessly knocked the eye out of a cyclops. Then he reached out with his right hand, transformed the creature into a card, and handed it to Nyan. G rank? What a joke, Nyan hissed, staring at the card in disbelief. She had just been praising how intimidating the cyclops looked, only to learn it was a basic G-level monster. The contradiction made her cheeks flush with embarrassment. Come on, we've still got hundreds of kilometers to cover to reach Macedora, Ush called out with a grin. No way. I don't believe these are the strongest monsters around, Nyan snapped, puffing her cheeks. Determined, she scanned the terrain, ignoring the cyclops as she searched for something new. And then she saw it, a massive lizard, lurking in the distance. Hey hunters! A quick break. Stretch or something lol. And let's dive back in. Chapter 155. Ugh, how can a lizard over 100 meters long only be rated E rank? Nyan stared in disbelief at the black-spotted lizard card in her hand, completely dumbfounded. If you're that weak, why even make yourself that big? She grumbled. Just goes to show, you really can't judge by appearances, Ush said with a chuckle, shaking his head. Still, Nyan wasn't ready to give up. She was convinced there had to be some monsters out there that were genuinely hard to collect. But the desert had other ideas, and delivered her a harsh lesson. The monsters here were so weak, she couldn't even collect them in good conscience. Frustrated, Nyan stomped the ground several times. Kia kia. Hee. A couple out here flirting, huh? Time to let my cutting beautician snip them into little pieces, a creepy voice murmured nearby. Unbeknownst to Ush and Nyan, a bizarre man had appeared, watching them with gleaming, perverse eyes. His stealth skills were incredibly refined, even Ush hadn't detected his presence. This was dangerous. If the man hadn't revealed himself by talking and idly playing with his scissors, Ush wouldn't have noticed anything. Hearing the faint snip-snip of scissors, Ush glanced in the direction of the sound. And there he was. Short red hair, a long lavender robe, and a pair of oversized barber scissors he opened and closed with eerie delight, making that distinct kia-kia sound. Dagger Danato. So it was him. Ush exhaled quietly in relief. For a moment, he thought there was a true powerhouse lurking nearby, but no, just this perverted assassin from the island's rogue roster. Still, Ush didn't let his guard down. He felt an unsettling dissatisfaction with his own danger-sensing ability. To think that someone had gotten within dozens of meters and stared directly at him, without triggering even a flicker of intuition. If the guy hadn't made that subtle sound, Ush would have been fine, but Nyan. She would have been in serious danger. Even if Ush could block the attack, Nyan might have been traumatized. After all, having a creepy man rush you with a perverted look while you're chatting casually with your boyfriend. Yeah. That'd leave a scar. TCH. I really need to keep training, Ush muttered with a frustrated sigh. With that, he clenched his right fist and began channeling aura. What's this? He's using Ko? Danato squinted. Are they arguing? He licked his lips and watched eagerly, anticipating the moment Ush would lash out at Nyan. Instead, Ush's aura-infused fist suddenly whipped backward in a tight arc. Boom. From Danato's point of view, Ush had just punched thin air. But the next moment, Danato's head exploded with blinding pain. The 10 he'd been maintaining shattered instantly. When did I get hit? How did he? The force of the blow made time seem to slow. He could feel his facial bones fracture, the damage spreading like cracks in glass. Thud. And then time caught up. The other side of Danato's skull burst open like a watermelon under a hammer. Bone, blood, and brain matter sprayed in all directions. He never had a chance. Ush's co-infused punch, carrying 4,700 points of aura strength, slammed into a point where Danato had maybe 10 aura at most. It was like crushing a grape with a sledgehammer. Danito, a player who wasn't exactly weak, was killed before he could even act, taken out by Ush in a single surprise blow. Had Danito been more attuned to hostile intent, he might have reacted in time, hardened his body with Ken, or dodged. But he wasn't. What's up? Why'd you suddenly stretch like that? Nyon asked as Ush casually pulled back his fist. It's nothing. My arm was feeling stiff, so I loosened it up a bit, Ush replied, smiling innocently as he waved both arms. Nyon nodded. Okay. In that case, let's head to Macedora. Right, let's go, Ush smiled, and the two stepped toward their destination. Nyon never even realized that just 100 meters away, slumped against a rocky outcrop, the now dead Danito had lain in a pool of blood. But moments later, his corpse dissolved into light particles, vanishing according to Greed Island's game mechanics. Each step covered 6.5 kilometers, so it didn't take long, less than 16 steps, and they arrived. The Magic City, Macedora. The reason for its name? Macedora served as the central hub for tools, spell cards, and rare items. Most importantly, it was the only city where players could buy large quantities of tool cards and unique spells. Its architecture had a distinctive cartoonish flair, like something out of a children's fantasy anime. The whole city looked like a magical kingdom from a storybook. Nyon's eyes sparkled with wonder. If the other cities aren't this cool, let's buy a place here, she suggested cheerfully. With rising excitement, Ush and Nyon walked into the heart of the city. Wow! Everyone here is dressed like they're in a magic world, Nyon gushed, watching the passers-by. Ush nodded, equally impressed. Yeah. It really does feel like we just stepped into a fairy tale. Chapter 156. When Ush and Nyon first arrived in Macedora, they didn't rush straight to the department store. Instead, they took their time, slowly walking through the city and taking in the magical atmosphere. After a relaxed stroll of over 10 minutes, they finally arrived at the department store. As soon as they stepped inside, Ush and Nyon were stunned by the sheer variety of cards available. However, when it came to spell cards, the selection was surprisingly limited. There were only 40 types, and even those were in very limited supply. Most spell cards were already in circulation, held tightly in the hands of other players. The only way the department store could restock was if players used their spell cards, triggering a refresh. It was inconvenient, but this wasn't a big problem for Ush. Because, for now, they didn't need a wide variety of spell cards. They were only after one, Drift, card number 1016. Its effect. Fly to a location on the island that you haven't visited before. If there are no new locations left to visit, the card fails and is consumed. Clearly, unvisited referred to places on Greed Island. So far, Ush and Nyon had only visited 3 locations. The Starting Clans, the Bounty City Antiquiba, and the Magic City Macedora. Beyond that, they hadn't touched most of the map. To be fair, Greed Island was pretty vast. From north to south it stretched around 300 kilometers, and about 200 kilometers east to west, making its total area roughly 60,000 square kilometers. Ush, with his enhanced movement ability, could travel 6.5 kilometers in a single step. Crossing the island from top to bottom would only take around 46 steps, maybe just a couple of seconds. But visiting every area would still require zigzagging across the entire map repeatedly, which felt inefficient and boring. So using drift was a much better solution. Alright, 20 drift cards per person, and keep one spare. Use them all first. When we hit a dead end, just return to Macedora, Ush said as he handed out the spell cards. Be careful out there. If anything happens, use the card to fly straight back to me. Got it. I'm going now. Nyon chirped, nodding enthusiastically. She pulled out a drift card. "Use drift," she shouted. The next moment, a shimmering sphere of aura enveloped her, and she was instantly launched to another part of the island. The speed was incredible. Even Ush couldn't help but click his tongue. Ha! The number of people able to teleport across the island like this must be in the hundreds. If all of them are using Razor's aura as a base template, and he can actually handle it, then he might be the strongest enhancer in the world, Ush mused. Of course, Razor wasn't fueling each card himself. His Nen was only a framework. "Okay, time to go," Ush muttered, pulling out his own drift card. He activated it, and was swept away in a flash of aura. Poof! Boom! Seconds later, he landed in another city. Looking around and checking his card book, Ush confirmed that this place was the port. Nyan had the map card, but Ush already knew a lot about the layout of the island. The port was the exit point, the one place where players could leave Greed Island and return to the real world. Located about 50 kilometers west of Macedora, this was the only port on the island. To leave the game, you had to defeat the port guardian, obtain an exit permit, and then you'd be transported back to reality. It's a simple process. But not something I need right now, Ush said with a shake of his head. After taking a quick look around, he used another drift card to head out again. Poof! This time, Ush arrived in a dense forest. There were way too many forests on Greed Island, so many that it was impossible to tell which one he was in just by sight alone. Only after checking his card book did he learn this forest was called Wen. Without lingering, he activated drift again. He was transported to Dulia's, the island's gambling city. Bright lights. Loud sounds. Neon signs flashing above casinos. You can use risk dice here to spin the slot machines. And maybe win card number 79, Rainbow Diamond, Ush muttered, stroking his chin as he stared at the game hall. He considered playing a few rounds. After all, he still didn't know whether 71 million Jenny was enough to buy a good property. But if I lose big, it could get dangerous. That kind of attention could bring real threats. Still, he was tempted. Wait. Maybe I should ask Nyan to do a fortune reading. See what my luck looks like this month, Ush said, clapping his palms together. With that thought in mind, he took one last glance around Dulia's before moving on. His next stop, a city called II. The name itself was strange, because this was known as the City of Love. Floating pink hearts decorated the skyline, and in every corner of the city, there were cute chance encounter scenes straight out of romance manga and anime. In other words, this place is just a giant dating sim, Ush muttered, intrigued. He was almost tempted to give it a try. But then he shook his head. Everyone here was an NPC, a puppet. Who knew what kind of data the devs were gathering behind the scenes? Falling in love here might just be walking into someone's experiment. Regretfully, Ush pulled out another drift card and left II. This time, he landed in a coastal city, Chapter 157. Looking at the coastal city ahead, Ush didn't even need to check his card book to recognize it. Shofarabi, the coastal city known for its rich seafood. If 15 players arrive here simultaneously using a company, they'll trigger the subquest Lisa and the 14 pirates. Winning the event's sports competition earns you the rare card Coastline Bottle. This city comes up a lot in the Greed Island questlines, Ush said, shaking his head slightly. But it's not great for settling down. Living by the coast meant constant humidity, definitely not comfortable long term. Without lingering, Ush used his remaining drift cards to explore a few more cities. When he found they were no longer effective, he activated Return to teleport back to Macedora. And now, he waited for Nyan to return. It had been half an hour. Nyan? You still haven't finished scouting? Ush asked via contact, a spell card he just picked up at the department store. Not yet. This city on Remy Road is really nice, Nyeon's voice replied from the other end. Ush paused, then said calmly, oh, not bad. Take a closer look, but don't take too long. We still need to buy that house today. He didn't expect much, though. She'd said the exact same thing in the last city. Okay. I'll be quick, Nyeon replied cheerfully. Truthfully, this was the first time Nyeon had ever picked out a home for herself. Usually, it was her father or the old family butler who chose their residences. Even when she lived in the Sky Arena, she hadn't seen the house before moving in. So this sense of autonomy, the thrill of choosing her own property on Greed Island, put Nyeon in high spirits. While she was off house hunting, Ush realized he couldn't just stand around forever. He decided to go inquire about real estate prices in Macedora himself. With that in mind, he began wandering through the magical city. A few minutes later, he was surprised to find someone blocking his path. It was a middle-aged man, messy short hair, unshaven, sallow complexion, hollow cheeks, and dark circles under his eyes. He had the disheveled look of a man who had long given up on life. Hello. My name's Kenneth, the man introduced himself seriously. Ush didn't move. Go on. Kenneth wasn't fazed by the indifference. He'd encountered far worse attitudes than this. I'm here to invite you to something. You must be new here, right? Kenneth asked. Ush didn't reply, just gave a small nod, signaling him to continue. You haven't experienced the difficulty, the boredom, or the danger of this game yet. It's risky to go on without proper knowledge. If you join us, we can share valuable information, Kenneth said, speaking earnestly. For newcomers like you, knowing the ropes is vital. Ush nodded again. Information is always useful, but I'd need to hear something I don't already know before I take you seriously. Kenneth paused, then opened his card book. He hesitated for a moment, seeing Ush's relaxed posture. Then he said, let me give you a tip. When someone opens their card book in front of you, you should open yours too. Even if you have no cards in it, it's just basic safety. Oh really? Ush replied, still smiling lazily. Kenneth frowned slightly. Even after saying that, Ush didn't open his own card book or show the slightest hint of tension. It was like he didn't care at all. Kenneth narrowed his eyes. Look, in this game, the only way to counter spell cards is with other spell cards. That's the system's design. Ush yawned. That's it? Kenneth's jaw tightened. This guy. He clearly got the message, but he wasn't even reacting. Not even a flicker of caution. The casual attitude annoyed him. Trying to drive the point home, Kenneth took out a spell card and said, in that case, let's do a little test. He activated the card. 1. 2. Nothing happened. Did you mean this card? Ush said casually, holding the spell card cassette in his hand. The card number 1033, the exact one Kenneth had been trying to use. Ush had already taken it. Then he called out his own card book and calmly added the stolen spell card to his collection. When? Kenneth froze, eyes wide in shock. His heart thumped hard in his chest. He hadn't even seen the movement. If Ush had wanted to attack him just now, he would have been dead. Tap. Kenneth instinctively took a step back, suddenly fearful. It took nearly 10 seconds for him to recover. Finally, he exhaled, closed his card book, and looked at Ush again, this time with real respect. I see. You really don't need any demonstrations, Kenneth said. In that case, allow me to share some actual useful info. He straightened up, eyes burning with resolve. If he could recruit this guy, their raiding squad strength would skyrocket. With that goal in mind, Kenneth began to relay everything he knew about the island's mechanics, strategies, and hidden quests, hoping Ush would listen. Chapter 158. There are a total of 40 types of spell cards. Each one. I already know that, Ush interrupted casually. In this game, there's a murderer. The bomber, yeah, I'm aware. Ush interrupted again, not even glancing up. To get card number 82, Rod of Heaven's Punishment, you. There's no need to explain it, Ush said, raising his palm to stop him. Seeing how Ush was familiar with every detail, Kenneth realized that his attempt at recruiting him had completely failed. Damn it. I finally meet someone this powerful, and I still can't win him over? I'm pathetic. Well then, if that's the case, I won't waste your time, Kenneth sighed, preparing to leave and head back to the plains to resume scouting. But just as he turned to go, Ush called out. Hold on a second, I've got a question. Go ahead. As long as it doesn't involve our team's secrets, I'm happy to answer, Kenneth replied, turning back toward him. How much does real estate cost in Macedora? Ush asked bluntly. What? Did you just ask about housing prices? Kenneth asked, eyes wide, as if he'd misheard something absurd. Of course I did, Ush said with a shrug. I was planning to ask someone else, but you were the one who approached me first. Kenneth stared for a moment. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. This was the first time anyone had ever asked him about real estate prices in Greed Island. Are you planning to rent or buy? He asked hesitantly, still in disbelief. Buy. Just tell me the price, Ush replied casually. He's actually planning to buy. Is he planning to stay here permanently? What about clearing the game and returning to the real world? Kenneth's thoughts were a whirlwind of confusion. Okay, he relented. Macedora is considered a magic city, so real estate here runs about 150,000 jenny per square meter. Other cities are cheaper, around 80,000 to 150,000. Villages drop to 10,000 jenny per square meter. If you build your own house out in the wild, it costs even less, but the material costs will be higher. Kenneth rattled off the prices based on what he'd learned early in the game when he was looking into renting. Upon hearing this, Ush raised his eyebrows in surprise. That low? At 150,000 jenny per square meter, that was about 3,000 yuan in his past life's currency. A 100 square meter house would only cost around 300,000. Back in Nangxia during his previous life, a first-tier city would easily charge 30,000 yuan per square meter. This was a steal. For a moment, Ush felt overwhelmed by how cheap it all seemed. But then he reminded himself, it was still 1999 in the Hunter x Hunter world. Property prices weren't as ridiculous as they were in his past life. Hotels here were also relatively inexpensive compared to his world. If that's the case, then 70 million should be enough for a 400 square meter house, right? Ush calculated aloud. Kenneth gawked. Wait, you were planning to spend 70 million jenny on a house? Seeing Ush so nonchalant about the number made Kenneth feel like he was standing in front of a top-tier boss character. Most players worked themselves to the bone just to scrape together a few million. And this guy was casually talking about buying luxury property like it was nothing. Where the hell did he get so much money? Then it clicked. Don't tell me. He sold the cards he looted. Kenneth inhaled sharply. While others were desperately collecting number cards, Ush had sold his off the moment he got them. Judging by the price, they were all likely B rank cards. If they were A rank, he'd have easily made over 100 million, Kenneth knew that much. No way. Kenneth muttered. That's right, Ush said, waving it off. Just 70 million jenny. Kenneth's jaw tightened. Ush looked at him strangely. What kind of house can you even get for 70 million? You couldn't even afford 400 square meters, Ush scoffed. SSSKK. Kenneth sucked in a breath. This guy wasn't just strong, he was rich. Like absurdly rich. Swallowing nervously, Kenneth asked, so? You didn't come here to claim Batra's 50 billion Jenny prize? Of course not. Why waste time over 50 billion? Ush replied casually. Once he became powerful enough and entered the business world for real, 23.75 trillion Jenny wouldn't even be a big deal. He intended to become the richest man in the world. Hearing this, Kenneth staggered back, then gave a hollow laugh. What was I even thinking? Trying to recruit someone like this into the strategy team? Well, I'll be going now, Kenneth said quickly, no longer wanting to embarrass himself. But Ush stopped him again. Wait, your strategy groups collected a lot of number cards, right? Yeah. About half of them so far, Kenneth replied, unsure where this was going. Then you should have Crazy Doctor's muscle enhancer, right? Kenneth blinked. We do. Why do you ask? Wanna sell it? Kenneth frowned. Sorry, we don't really need the money. The price is the same here as outside, Ush said calmly. 100 million Jenny. If you're selling, we can trade directly. SSSKK. Kenneth inhaled again, eyes wide. Is this guy planning to clear the game? Or buy the entire island? Chapter 159. Seeing the look in Kenneth's eyes, Ush knew immediately that he'd misunderstood. I'm not trying to clear the game. I'm not even interested, Ush said plainly. So? Are you selling it or not? Selling. When do you want it? Kenneth responded without hesitation. He'd spent so much time and energy just to earn a bit of money. And even if it was only 100 million Jenny, not as flashy as Batra's 50 billion reward, it was guaranteed, easy cash. And honestly, even if their strategy team did eventually clear the game, Kenneth probably wouldn't see more than a fraction of the reward anyway. Compared to that, 100 million right now was just too tempting. Whenever. The sooner, the better, Ush replied with a sigh, seeing Kenneth's eager expression. Got it. Wait here, I'll be back right away, Kenneth said excitedly. He activated a return card and vanished in a flash of aura. Of course, he wasn't dumb enough to teleport straight to his base. Like any experienced player, Kenneth kept his camp's exact location concealed. And he never carried numbered cards when traveling, too risky. He had to go retrieve the card from storage before making the trade. But while Kenneth was gone, Ush had no intention of just standing around. Instead, he wandered off toward a residential area, intending to scout out available homes in Macedora. Searching for every card by myself would take way too long. Maybe buying them directly from guys like Kenneth is the smarter route, Ush muttered as he walked. And that was exactly why he'd made Kenneth the offer. His objective was clear: get stronger, fast. Hunting down cards one by one would only slow him down. And if he could help Nyan grow stronger along the way, all the better. Upon reaching the residential district, Ush explained his situation to a city staffer. Someone was quickly assigned to guide him through the listings. He specified that he wanted freestanding homes, nothing attached, and no shared walls. Bang! His house hunting had barely begun when a familiar burst of aura shot toward him. Ush! I've made up my mind. Macedora's the best place to live after all, Nyan called out as she landed, speaking quickly before even surveying the area. A few seconds later, she blinked and realized what was happening. Wait, are you already touring homes? Ush smiled and gestured at the properties around them. Oh. Then I'm coming too. Nyan beamed and joined him without hesitation. While Ush and Nyan browsed houses, Kenneth had arrived back at the strategy team's hidden base and began calling everyone together. Hey Kenneth, what's with the sudden summons? Yeah, I was in the middle of something important. Is there trouble? Did the bomber show up? It's possible. We can't rule it out. Kenneth's teammates whispered among themselves, watching him curiously. One member, Gisper, stepped forward and asked seriously, "Kenneth, what happened? Spill it." "Right. You wouldn't call us all back unless it was something big," said Ganshu, adjusting his glasses with a skeptical look. As a covert agent for the bomber, Ganshu had been keeping a low profile. He had no idea what Kenneth could possibly want at a time like this. Kenneth took a breath. "Someone offered to buy a card from me. I called you here to discuss whether we should sell it as a team. And if we decide not to sell it," he added, "I'll just sell it myself." The room went silent for a second. Then, "Are you out of your mind, Kenneth? We're here to clear the game, and you want to sell off cards?" "Yeah. If we sell, how are we supposed to leave the island? I've already spent months in this place. I'm only here for the reward. If you've got time to waste, go grind by yourself. I used a return card to get here because of this nonsense. This is ridiculous. Calling an emergency meeting for something like this, seriously?" One by one, the entire team erupted in complaints and insults. Even Kenneth's closest allies just stared in silence, unsure of how to respond. He had really overstepped. Still, Kenneth remained calm. As the others turned to leave, he raised his voice. "He wants to pay us with money from the real world." Silence. The shouting died instantly. The room went completely still. Even Gisper and Ganshu stared, stunned. Kenneth continued before they could respond, "And he's offering the same price we'd get from selling cards in the game." "What? Buying them at full price? Oh my god. So an A-rank card would go for 100 million Jenny. If he wants an S-rank card, that's $1 billion. And if he wants an SS rank, we're talking 5 billion Jenny. Wait, how many cards is he planning to buy? Is he trying to clear the game by purchasing them all? That's insane. Bachra's reward is only 50 billion. If he's buying every card at full price, he'd be spending way more than that. What's the point?" The entire team turned to Kenneth, stunned. Kenneth shook his head. "I don't know about the rest. But right now, he only asked for Crazy Doctor's muscle enhancer. That's it." Chapter 160. Kenneth's words stunned the strategy team, and everyone turned to him with dumbfounded expressions. "That's it? All this fuss, for a 100 million Jenny transaction?" Sure, 100 million sounded impressive at first. But split between all members of the strategy team, that came out to just a few million per person. Not much at all. If converted to real-world currency, that'd barely be a few tens of thousands of yuan. "I just get the feeling he's not someone who would stop at buying just one card," Kenneth explained seriously. "That's why I called you back, to ask whether any of you want to get involved. And besides, he has no interest in clearing the game." "How can you be sure he doesn't want to clear the game?" one of them asked. "Yeah, that's a bold claim. Even if he doesn't care about Bachra's 50 billion reward, wouldn't he at least want to take 3 cards out of the game?" Kenneth's reasoning was immediately challenged. Looking at his companions, Kenneth couldn't help but wonder if their group's entry standards had been set too low. He shook the thought from his mind and said, "He's buying a house here. In Macedora. And not just any house, he's spending more than 70 million Jenny on it." He paused, then added flatly, "He only entered the game today." Everyone's expression shifted. He sold off the cards he stole on day 1, got 70 million Jenny, and is now spending all of it on real estate. And get this, he's not even satisfied. He wants to spend even more. The longer Kenneth talked, the more amazed the group became. He was strong enough to rob players immediately after entering. He had no intention of collecting all 100 number cards. He was willing to throw tens of millions into real estate on Greed Island. He clearly wasn't chasing rewards, he was just here to enjoy himself. SSSKK. A collective breath was drawn across the room. This wasn't just some elite player. This was a tourist tycoon with more money than sense. Everyone stared at each other, eyes filled with something between admiration and envy. If only we had that kind of freedom. Let's try to build a relationship, Gisper suggested. If he turns into a long-term buyer, we can make consistent profits. I agree, said Ganshu, eyes gleaming behind his glasses. Despite their ties to the bomber, these three were surprisingly pragmatic. They never went around robbing players like the Phantom Troop might. They understood their limits, and more importantly, they understood business. Their methods might be underhanded, but they weren't suicidal. And right now, they saw an opportunity they couldn't ignore. All right, I'll go find him, Kenneth said. And I'll bring Crazy Doctor's muscle enhancer with me. To be honest, he was only 80% confident the deal would go through. But if he didn't try, he'd regret it forever. Even if he had to sell the card himself, it was worth the risk. Wait, Kenneth, bring some other A-rank cards too. And a few defensive spell cards, Ganshu advised. Kenneth paused and nodded. He knew exactly what Ganshu meant. No point meeting a power player like Ush without a few insurance cards in your back pocket. After exchanging cards with the team members guarding the base, Kenneth used multiple movement cards and quickly made his way back. As he arrived, he found himself hovering in midair. Oh, you're here. Hang on, I'm still checking out the place, Ush said, glancing back at Kenneth. He was floating above Macedora, gazing with interest at a house suspended in the sky. The ground-based houses had lost their appeal. Ush and Nyan were now inspecting the city's most luxurious offering, a floating house. This one's perfect. How much is it? Nyan asked excitedly, turning to the salesperson. The woman smiled brightly. Esteemed guests, this is Macedora's most premium property. It costs 500,000 jenny per square meter. This house is 460 square meters in total, so the full price comes to 230 million jenny. Would you prefer to pay in full, or finance it in installments? Ush. We don't have enough, Nyan said, eyes wide with panic. What should we do? We should have robbed more people. Ush chuckled and patted her on the head. Relax. I've got a plan. Turning to Kenneth, he asked, Don't tell me. You only brought one card. Of course not. Kenneth replied, quickly correcting himself. I brought 13 A-rank cards. Perfect. I'll take them all, Ush said, completely unfazed by the number. He reached out, gesturing for Kenneth to hand them over. Kenneth hesitated. He didn't doubt Ush's power, but that was still 1.3 billion jenny worth of cards. Ush noticed the hesitation and sighed. Don't worry, I'm not going to scam you out of 1.3 billion, he said, half amused, half annoyed. Why would I burn a bridge with a potentially useful supplier over a little money? Truthfully, Ush did care about the cards. But he had many ways to get what he wanted, and this was one of the simplest. No. That's not what I meant, Kenneth said quickly, waving his hands. He reached into his inventory and began handing over the cards one by one. Chapter 161. After receiving Kenneth's 13 A-rank cards, Ush paid in full without hesitation. He used 2 A-rank cards to offset part of the cost, along with 30 million jenny in cash. The cards he used were Number 010 Golden Rurabu. Number 013 Happiness Passbook. Neither of these cards were of use to Ush, so selling them was an easy decision. That still left him with 11 A-rank cards in his possession. Among them, aside from the one Ush had been targeting, number 070 Crazy Doctor's Muscle Enhancer, there was one other card that caught his eye. Number 073 Dark Jade. A simple jade stone. But its effect? A gem protected by a demon. When the holder is in danger, the danger is transferred to another nearby person. It wasn't useful to Ush himself. But, take this, Ush said as he materialized the dark jade and handed it to Nyan, gesturing for her to keep it safe. With this jade, any threat that targeted Nyan would be redirected to him. For her, the danger might have been fatal. For him? It would barely register, maybe like a mosquito bite. Just like that, Nyan's safety level rose drastically. Mr. Ush, when are we finalizing the trade? Kenneth asked hesitantly. Seeing that Ush hadn't mentioned payment yet, he was starting to get nervous. Even if it was just a dozen A-rank cards, they had taken a long time to gather. If Ush really decided to backstab him now, Kenneth wasn't sure he could show his face back at the strategy team again. I'm ready, Ush said. Do you have a ship ticket? If not, I'll have to head to the port myself. The card used to leave the game is called a ticket, it's obtained at the Greed Island port. Yes, I've got one, Kenneth replied quickly, pulling it out and handing it to him. Ush took the ship ticket, then asked, what's your bank account number? Kenneth rattled it off. Ush memorized it, then waved him off. Go. I'll handle the transfer. Then he turned toward the second floor. Nyan. I'm heading out. Stay inside the house until I get back, okay? Got it, Tilda. Nyan called down brightly from upstairs. Ush smiled and stepped outside. He wasn't worried in the slightest. Greed Island's residential system was protected by strict game mechanics. No one could enter a home without the owner's consent. No one could attack someone inside a house. To override that system, a person would need to be stronger than Jing freaks and have more aura than the island's entire reservoir. And as far as Ush knew, no one alive met both of those conditions. Activating the ship ticket, Ush instantly left Greed Island and reappeared in his room in Yorknu City. Ah! Master Ush, you're back? Orisa gasped. They had assumed he and Nyan would be gone for a week. Seeing him return just hours later left both her and Sakura startled. What are you doing? Ush asked, raising an eyebrow at the photo album Orisa and Sakura had hurriedly shoved aside. Blushing, Orisa replied, in reply to Master Ush. I was looking at wedding dresses. Oh. I see, Ush said with a nod. That can wait. First, deposit 1.3 billion Jenny into this account. He scribbled down Kenneth's account number on a slip of paper and handed it over. Without further delay, Ush turned toward the console in the center of the room and activated his Nen ability. Whoosh! He was instantly retransported into the world of Greed Island. Knock knock knock. Ush. Ush. It's your uncle, I just heard your voice, are you here? Only 3 seconds after Ush left, someone was already banging on his door. Ah. Sorry, Mr. Squirrel, Master Ush just stepped out, Orisa said as she opened the door, addressing the man outside with a stack of papers in his arms. The squirrel grumbled and slapped his thigh. Damn it. Couldn't wait 2 more minutes. I needed him to sign. With no choice, he handed Orisa the documents. Here. Just make sure he signs them when he's back, he said before rushing off. Orisa blinked down at the papers and flipped through the top sheet, then gasped. Equity transfer agreement. And it's 51%, she exclaimed, covering her mouth in shock. She already knew how wildly profitable Shampoo and Love But had become. It wasn't just a business, it was a money-printing machine. People were throwing Jenny at it like it was water. Some clients came back multiple times a day. Despite the absurdity, it had basically become a monopoly in its niche. After Ush instantly wiped out the sick dog and forced the gray rat to retreat to the shadow beasts, his fame had skyrocketed, not just in Yorknu, but globally. In such a landscape, for Squirrel to hand over 51% of the company was surreal. As long as Ush signed that document, he'd be entitled to a massive, permanent income stream. But what Arisa didn't know was that this transfer wasn't a gift. It was mandatory. Even if Ush refused, Squirrel had no choice but to give it to him. He was happy to do it, after all, Ush was family. But the real reason? The blue rat had issued an ultimatum to the gray rat. With the rise of the Shampoo and Love Butt platform, their hold over the underground had begun to crumble. If they didn't adapt, and if Ush wasn't brought in, the gray and blue rats would be eliminated in all but name. Chapter 162. Because Ush's involvement in the equity transfer was public knowledge, the deal was effectively untouchable. No one dared to interfere. Everyone understood, anyone who could make the talent list was no ordinary person trying to outsmart them. You might as well try overpowering them with brute force instead. But that was an even worse idea. Because Ush was already terrifyingly strong. At that point, causing trouble wasn't ambition, it was suicide. Why struggle? Just lay back and enjoy the stability. As for Ush himself, he had no idea what was going on behind the scenes. He had already returned to Macedora and was in the middle of fluffing pillows with Nyan on their massive floating bed. While the two of them were relaxing, Kenneth stood anxiously outside the city, staring at his phone. Even though he knew bank transfers took time, Kenneth couldn't help but worry. This was his first offline transaction with a stranger, and the amount was 1.3 billion jenny. 5 minutes passed. Still nothing. Was I really scammed? Kenneth muttered. No way. He's way too rich to cheat someone over 1.3 billion. Right? He smiled nervously, then paused again. But still. That is a lot of money. He fell silent. Time crawled by. Another 10 minutes passed. Damn it. He really tricked me. Kenneth clenched his fists, blaming himself. He felt ashamed, like he had betrayed the strategy team. If not for me, we wouldn't have lost 13 A-rank cards. He didn't know how he'd face his teammates. Ding. A crisp notification rang from his phone. Kenneth jolted. He grabbed the device and checked the message with trembling hands. It was a bank alert. His eyes scanned the contents, and then lit up. Yes, he shouted, pumping his fist in the air. He immediately dove back into the game to deliver the good news. Back at the team's base camp, Kenneth burst in, chest heaving with excitement. He raised a fist into the air and shouted. 1.3 billion jenny, confirmed transfer. What? Seriously? No way. Rich people really are that eccentric. I don't care why, as long as it pays. Split evenly, that's tens of millions each. I wonder if he'll buy more cards. We could prep some just for him. The atmosphere turned festive. Everyone was stunned, and delighted. Time passed quickly. By the next morning, Ush slowly woke up on their 2-meter-wide plush floating bed. He yawned, stretched, then rolled out of bed and headed for the bathroom. After washing up, he pulled out Crazy Doctor's muscle enhancer and materialized it. 7 small boxes appeared in front of him. He opened one. Inside was a glowing, blue vial of liquid. Why does this look exactly like the T-virus? Ush muttered, staring at the vial with unease. Still, he shrugged and drank it down. According to the description, the potion had to be taken once a day for 7 consecutive days to see results. Ush waited as the liquid settled into his body. Then, his expression changed. He stared blankly at the now empty vial and sighed. No wonder Biscuit and the others didn't bother using this thing, even though they knew about it. It wasn't a genetic enhancer. The formula was infused with Nen, and its effects only worked if the user relied on basic Nen principles, specifically, people who weren't highly advanced in Ren and Hatsu. In other words, it did nothing for someone like Ush, who had already mastered the second stage of aura refinement. It's completely useless, he muttered. He hoped the enhancer would give him a shortcut, a little boost to his power. But this potion was nothing more than an elaborate energy aid, best suited for intermediate users. Nen-based enhancements depended on the user's understanding, beliefs, and imagination. They weren't universal. If someone wanted to create a true genetic enhancer, they'd need deep knowledge of biology, especially genetics. Someone like Jing, with advanced scientific understanding, might eventually achieve that. But even then, no one, not even in Ush's old world, had fully mapped the genes for strength. So naturally, in this world, it remained fantasy. The enhancer wasn't bad, it just wasn't enough for Ush's level. It might save energy, but it wouldn't make him stronger. He quietly stored the remaining boxes and turned back to his card book. He flipped through the known numbered cards, cards already registered in the system by other players. One entry caught his eye, number 009, Harvest Tree. Harvest Tree. If there's a fruit, why wouldn't there be a tree? Ush mused. My Nen ability, Miracle Fruit, is great, but its storage capacity sucks. If I didn't set hard limits, I'd be lucky to hold 10 fruits total. He rubbed his chin, thinking carefully. There had to be a way to push it further. Chapter 163. As if struck by a new idea, Ush suddenly became interested in the card Harvest Tree. After a moment's thought, he pulled out a contact spell card and called Kenneth. The connection was instant. Mr. Ush, what can I do for you? Kenneth asked eagerly. I wanted to ask, do you happen to have the Harvest Tree card? Ush replied. He had no interest in collecting it the slow way. If Kenneth had one, he'd just buy it and run a few experiments. Kenneth's eyes lit up. Yes, we do. We have one. Great. Bring it here, I want to test something, Ush said, nodding in satisfaction. This would save him a lot of time. Exactly 1 minute later, Kenneth was already knocking at Ush's door in Macedora. After letting him in and taking the Harvest Tree, Ush materialized it in the small courtyard outside his home. Watching Ush act so casually, Kenneth's eyes twitched involuntarily. Even knowing Ush wasn't interested in clearing the game, seeing someone use an S-rank card just like that, it really made Kenneth feel like he was watching a god in flip-flops. But Ush didn't pay him any mind. He focused on the tree, examining the fruits it bore. Just regular fruits. Ush muttered with a frown. There were exotic, valuable-looking fruits hanging from the tree, delicious, sure, but none with any supernatural effects. Hard to believe a tree like this qualifies as S-rank. Still, Ush shrugged and reached up to pluck the fruits, one by one. He inspected them for half an hour, touching, squeezing, turning them over, before stepping back. He wasn't trying to copy the Harvest Tree directly. He was studying it, searching for inspiration. As Ush turned to head back inside, he noticed Kenneth still standing there awkwardly. You're still here? Ush asked. Kenneth gave a sheepish grin. Well, the money? Oh, right. I haven't paid you yet. Ush smirked. Do you have your ship ticket on you? Of course, Kenneth said, pulling it out immediately. With the ticket in hand, Ush returned to the real world. Upon arriving, he learned from Arisa that his uncle had delivered a 51% equity transfer contract the day before. After a moment's thought, Ush signed the papers and had Arisa transfer 1 billion jenny to Kenneth's account. Then, without delay, he returned to Greed Island. This time, nothing and no one interrupted his plans. Meanwhile, Kenneth, now 1 billion jenny richer, returned to the strategy team's base like a conquering hero. 2.3 billion jenny in just 2 days. While still far from Botcher's 50 billion reward, this was real money, in their hands. No ifs, no conditions. The team was buzzing. This guy really is legit. Next time, a few of us should go with you. What if he needs something while you're asleep or busy and no one answers? Yeah. We don't want to risk him finding another group. We're not the only ones who can collect cards. Ganshu pushed up his glasses and nodded. Exactly. Everyone agreed. They didn't want to lose Ush as a customer. Not now. But no one noticed the glint in Ganshu's eyes as he spoke. There might be more than strategy in his plans. Ush didn't know what the strategy team was plotting, and he didn't care. Right now, his attention was completely absorbed by Nen development. After Nyan woke up, he instructed her to take 1 bottle of Crazy Doctor's muscle enhancer each day, and he explained the fruit baskets he had gathered. Then, Ush dove into the deepest Nen development he had ever attempted. This wasn't just refining an existing ability. This was full-on Nen expansion. His previous Nen, Miracle Fruit, was more like a natural extension of his core Nen type, a base ability he had instinctively created. But now, he was venturing into a new tier. Just like Krilo Lucifer, the leader of the Phantom Troop, who expanded his Nen by creating a bookmark so he could use stolen abilities without holding his book, Ush was now adapting to fix a flaw in his system. For Krilo, it was tactical efficiency. For Ush, it was fruit storage. The original Miracle Fruit could only store a limited number of fruits, and even that required a lot of energy. So Ush created a new ability. Nen Expansion, Miracle Fruit Tree. 1. Embodied fruits can be hung from the tree, maximum, 9. 2. While attached, the Miracle Fruit loses its ability to passively absorb life energy. 3. Once a fruit is used, it must be rehung manually. 4. Hanging fruits do not conflict with the core Miracle Fruit ability. A relatively simple ability. It existed purely to preserve miracle fruits. But due to system limitations, the hanging process disabled each fruit's natural ability to absorb energy. Otherwise, the Nen burden would have made the tree unsustainable, even for Ush. It had taken 3 full days to perfect, far more effort than developing miracle fruit itself. But there was one upside. Through the process, Ush's manifested aura output had finally reached 5,000. It was progress. And it was only the beginning. Chapter 164. Some of the limitations of the Miracle Fruit Tree didn't bother Ush. In fact, they were barely worth worrying about. With just 5,000 points of manifested aura, a Miracle Fruit could last 500 seconds, over 8 minutes of active ability time. If Ush were to one day attain a nearly immortal state, his manifest energy would need to last thousands of years anyway. Staring at the glowing Miracle Fruit Tree floating before him, Ush nodded in satisfaction. He took a deep breath and deactivated the manifestation, storing it away. With 5,000 points of aura output, I wonder if I can start manifesting elemental fruits. Ush murmured. As he spoke, his hands began moving instinctively. Nen energy surged. Within a second, 5,000 aura points gathered into his palms, and then, manifestation. A glowing fruit appeared. Ush's eyes lit up. A swamp fruit. He didn't particularly like it, but the appearance of a natural-type fruit meant one thing. He could now manifest Logia-class fruits. He grinned, popped the swamp fruit into his mouth, and immediately dissolved the wax fruit ability he'd been using. No hesitation. As far as he was concerned, wax was strong, but not on par with the potential of natural elements. From now on, whenever Ush came across fruits he didn't urgently need but still wanted to keep, he simply hung them on the Miracle Fruit Tree. It became a growing collection of powerful abilities. Smoke Fruit. Gas Fruit. Snow Fruit. Slow Fruit. Gravity Fruit. Human Fruit, Buddha Form. A blend of natural, Paramecia, and even Zoan types. Yet none of them were what Ush truly sought. What he wanted were the rarest and most powerful. Phoenix Fruit, Mythical Zoan. Soul Fruit, Paramecia/Reality Bender. Thunder Fruit, Logia. What tied the Phoenix and Soul Fruits together? Longevity. Even though the Thunder Fruit was more destructive and versatile, especially in Ush's hands, lifespan extending abilities were far more valuable to a Nen user. Extended life meant more aura. More aura meant stronger manifestations. It was a compounding effect. But Ush had overestimated what 5,000 aura could manifest, and underestimated how difficult it was to summon exactly what he wanted. After 7 attempts, he still hadn't pulled the Phoenix or Soul Fruits. On the 8th try, the Thunder Fruit finally appeared. He didn't hesitate. He ate it immediately. Bzzzzzzzt. As the Thunder Fruit took effect, arcs of electricity exploded across Ush's body. Within moments, he transformed into a streak of lightning and shot into the sky over Macedora, flickering across the sky at blinding speed. One moment he was in the east, then west. His movement wasn't just fast, it was explosive. Faster than his Nen-based long-distance teleportation, and far more forceful. Each burst came with a concussive shockwave. Bzzzt, bzzzzzt. After a few minutes of testing his new powers, Ush returned to the floating house with a satisfied grin. The Thunder Fruit had passed his test. Even if he hadn't yet tapped into its full offensive potential, the elemental form and light-speed mobility were more than enough to justify keeping it. Later that day, Ush contacted Kenneth and asked him to bring a number 080 floating stone card. Not for himself, for Nyan. She had discovered the one downside of their beautiful floating house. Getting back to the ground was inconvenient. It either meant wasting a come again spell card, or waiting for Ush to return and teleport her himself. Nyan didn't lack money, but she hated the idea of getting stuck. So after a bit of research, she found the floating stone, a platform that could rise and fall at will. But when the delivery finally arrived, it wasn't Kenneth. It was Ganshu. Ush raised a brow as the bespectacled man floated down into the courtyard. Ganshu explained, "Kenneth's tied up with some business. I'll be handling deliveries from now on." He also handed over a new bank account card. The reason? The old account was Kenneth's personal one. To avoid disputes, we're switching to a group fund. It sounded reasonable. Ush nodded and completed the transaction as usual. Same routine. Same results. Only the account and person had changed. Huh? That's weird. Why'd they change guys all of a sudden? Nyan asked as Ush walked in. It's just business, Ush replied, unconcerned. As long as it doesn't affect us, who cares? He smiled, reached into his pocket, and handed her the floating stone card. Yay! I got the card I wanted. Nyan beamed, instantly materializing it and riding it around the yard like a hoverboard. Meanwhile, Ganshu reunited with 2 other team members, Bala and Shabu. Well? Bala asked. Was it successful? He didn't ask questions, right? Shabu added. Ganshu pushed up his glasses, a smirk playing on his lips. He's just a buyer. He doesn't care who the seller is. Then we're golden. Shabu cheered. This way, we'll get both the clearance reward and a steady income, Bala added, eyes gleaming. Ganshu chuckled darkly. No. This is just the beginning. We can do much more. Chapter 165. Ganshu's cryptic words made Bala and Shabu pause for a moment. Then Bala asked, confused, wait. Are you talking about threatening him? Like blackmail? Ganshu shook his head. No. It's simpler than that. Huh? The two looked at each other. What do you mean? Ganshu adjusted his glasses. He's always buying cards. Every time, he reaches out beforehand. If we collect those cards in advance, we control the supply. We name the price. Bala and Shabu stared at him, then suddenly clapped. Oh, that's genius. Why do I even need to train if I'm drinking this potion every day? Nyan whined. Despite her protests, she obediently followed Ush deeper into the forest outside Macedora. Ush looked back at her with amusement. Even if you're taking the enhancer, you still need to know how to fight, and how to properly channel your aura. Today's plan was simple: combat training. Ush had already achieved a new level, 5,000 points of manifested aura, plus the thunder fruit. But he wasn't satisfied. He wanted more. And since Nyan had nothing to do at home, she might as well tag along and pick up some basic combat skills and Nen control. That said, Ush didn't expect her to train like Gon or Killua. She wasn't raised for hardship, and she wasn't cut out for it either. To be fair, neither was Ush, if not for his immense talent. If he hadn't been born gifted, he wouldn't bother with brutal training either. Once they arrived at a clearing, Ush explained Nyan's task and then stepped off to the side. He entered Ken mode, hardening his aura output into a powerful defensive state. Instantly, thunder element Nen surged around his body and was absorbed by the thunder fruit, without wasting a drop. For Ush, aura reading techniques were no longer a challenge. Even if he lost control for a moment, he could recover quickly. Right now, his goal was to increase both his base aura and his potential aura ceiling. There were two ways to do that. Expand his natural mental strength. Improve the quality of his Nen through sustained focus. He couldn't raise quantity instantly, but quality. That he could train. The method: sustained Ren training. The longer one could maintain Ken or Ren, the more one's aura threshold would grow. But it wouldn't be easy. With his current potential aura at around 55,000, a full Ren session would require at least 7 hours to see results. Too slow. So Ush opted for a shortcut, using Ken, a hardened defense stance, to speed it up. Gon and Killua managed to go from under an hour of Ren to over 3 hours with this method. I can do the same, Ush muttered. He thought back to Gon's training data. At that point, Gon's potential aura was around 25,000. So before he trained it up, he had maybe 8,000. And his manifested aura? Probably just 1,200 or so. Ush smiled wryly as he maintained his Ken state, trying to distract himself from the fatigue. Gon's an enhancer who's barely second tier at that point, and he already has a 1,200 aura output. But when he strikes, thanks to enhancer synergy, he punches at double power. He's literally the biological son of aura itself. It wasn't fair. Enhancers could turn 1,200 aura into 2,400 force. And after Ren training, Gon could maintain 25,000 aura, which translated to 2,600 manifested aura. Which meant he could attack at over 5,200 strength. Damn. That's basically a first-tier punch from a second-tier Nen user. Ush shook his head, sighing. This guy just pours it all into offense. No defense, just pure output. He couldn't help but admire, and envy, that. But could Ush do the same? No. He wasn't that reckless. Giving up all defense and trusting others to keep him safe wasn't his style. An hour passed. Ush still felt nothing. He maintained his hardened state with ease, even casually sitting down while Nyan practiced. Every now and then, he sipped from a chilled drink and gave her feedback. Nice form. Keep your aura focused on the palm. Good. Then, with a thoughtful glance at his card book, Ush muttered. Didn't expect card number 047, Sleeping Girl, to be this useful. He was referring to the sleep-enhancing card. The reason Gon and Killua could train so intensively under Biscuit wasn't just effort, it was Nen-boosted recovery. With support from Biscuit's cookie magic beautician, they could recover 8 hours of sleep in just 30 minutes. That allowed them to train nearly non-stop. In the beginning, they could cram in over a dozen training cycles in a single day. Over 1 month, that intensity added up to 6 months worth of training. It was an absurd advantage. And now, Ush was using Sleeping Girl the same way. Hey hunters! Another quick break. Real quick. Pay attention to your breathing. Great, you're breathing manually now. You're welcome. Let's dive back in. Chapter 166. TCH. Training 24 hours a day really is incredible, Ush muttered, stretching his shoulders slightly. One day of this is equivalent to 20 days of normal practice. But then he grimaced. Still, it burns through a lot more stamina. That said, he quickly shook his head. To become stronger, that kind of cost is nothing. For nearly a month now, Ush had maintained a full-time training schedule. The only times he deactivated his aura output were for meals and certain intimate moments with Nyan. Though he spoke with casual frustration, inwardly, Ush was thrilled. He never would have imagined that the most impactful item he'd find on Greed Island wasn't the harvest tree, or some spell card, or a rare fruit. It was Sleeping Girl. The card he had once dismissed as basic. Thanks to that card, Ush had gone from training once or twice per day to training every single hour of the day. Nyan, of course, caught on to this cheat and asked Ush to buy her a sleeping bag so she could do the same. She genuinely tried. But after just a few days, Ush noticed something. Nyan's aura output was still high, and mentally she didn't feel tired at all. But her body had started to deteriorate. She never mentioned it, but Ush saw the signs. After examining the situation, he came to a surprising conclusion. The reason his body could handle non-stop training was because of the thunder fruit. Whenever his body became fatigued, he would unconsciously enter elemental form, temporarily bypassing his physical limits and refreshing himself. A few minutes in lightning form, and the fatigue would vanish. In other words, Sleeping Girl plus Thunder Fruit had turned Ush into a perpetual training machine. Now it made sense why few Nen users used Sleeping Girl this way. Without an elemental type fruit or extremely strong constitution, the body simply couldn't keep up. In that case, I'm not cheating, Ush said with a grin. I'm just combining my own strengths. A full month passed. 30 days of non-stop aura training. In real terms, Ush had completed 600 days worth of practice. Damn, he laughed. Even I didn't expect results to come this fast. He glanced at his aura tracker. Manifested aura, 9,000 points. Potential aura, 90,000 plus, easy. All thanks to Sleeping Girl and the Thunder Fruit. And yet, Ush had a hunch that it could go even faster. If I had the Phoenix Fruit instead of Thunder, maybe the regeneration would be even better. He paused. Actually, I should test that. Realizing he'd been so focused on aura training that he'd neglected his Nen development, Ush halted his practice and began summoning new miracle fruits. With his current aura output, he could now manifest things he couldn't before. Sure enough, after just a few tries, he succeeded. Phoenix Fruit. Soul Fruit. Both finally appeared. Ush didn't hesitate. He immediately ate the Phoenix Fruit and hung the Soul Fruit on the Miracle Fruit tree for later. But that wasn't all. He also manifested a mythical fruit from an old legend, the Danmu Fruit, inspired by an ancient creature recorded in the Classic of Mountains and Seas. According to the legend, eating Danmu would eliminate hunger and grant control over fire. Ush wasn't sure how its flame compared to the phoenix's, but anything that appeared alongside mythical birds and folklore had to be potent. Still, his current priority was vitality. Even if Danmu had stronger firepower, the Phoenix Fruit's healing and regenerative abilities were more valuable in the long term. As for the Soul Fruit, it overlapped with the Phoenix's healing effects, so Ush shelved it for now. The moment the Phoenix Fruit took effect, Ush entered Ken mode again, and immediately felt a burning sensation in his meridians. But instead of panicking, he smiled. That pain was the result of a massive surge in aura volume. With the phoenix fruit's regenerative powers now supplementing his nen training, his body was pushing itself even further. His refining speed was now over 100 times what it had been before. My aura pool feels so bloated, it's like I just won the nen lottery, Ush said, stretching lazily. He smirked. I used to think even with cheats, it would take months to hit master level nen. But now, at this rate, I might break into masterclass within a month. He tilted his head, eyes gleaming. Not bad for someone who only awakened nen 6 months ago. Just then, Nyeon came running toward him, face pale and panicked. Ush! Something's wrong, she shouted. Chapter 167. What's wrong? Ush asked, puzzled, as he looked at the panicked Nyeon in front of him. All this training has made my skin dry, Nyeon cried. Touch it. Feel for yourself. Ush reached out, slightly confused, and brushed his fingers over her cheek. Yeah, you're right. A little rough. See? What are we going to do now? She asked, distraught. Don't worry. I remember a designated card called Beautiful Skin Hot Spring. That should fix it, Ush said, thinking aloud. Nyeon's eyes lit up. Right. I completely forgot about that. Relax, I'll have them bring the card over. Ush activated his communication and sent a message to Gonshu, requesting 2 cards. Beautiful Skin Hot Spring. Crazy Doctor's Muscle Enhancer. He expected Gonshu to arrive in just a few minutes. But 15 minutes passed. Still, no one came. Nyeon frowned. Why are they taking so long this time? Ush narrowed his eyes, his tone turning sarcastic. Figures. They couldn't help themselves. They're really trying to pull something right when they could be making easy money. He scoffed. Looks like we'll need to find a new supplier. Or maybe I'll just start getting cards myself. What? That's ridiculous, Nyeon snapped. Why now of all times? Can't they pick a better moment? They chose this moment on purpose, Ush said, amused. Because they know how badly we need those cards. As he spoke, Ush materialized his card book and activated the card numbered 1038, list. List, Beautiful Skin Hot Spring. Beep beep beep. The card book screen flashed. It displayed. Holders, 3. Total, 15 copies. Ush's smile widened. Well? Nyeon leaned in close. Are we getting it? No, Ush said calmly. Not unless we give in to their terms. Or kill them. Huh? But there are 3 people listed. Nyeon blinked. Exactly. 3 cards. All held by members of the same team. Nyeon clenched her fists. Ugh, those bastards. She stormed off back to the house, muttering about emergency skincare treatments. Barely 30 seconds later, a wave of aura approached Ush's position. Gonshu had arrived. Ush glanced at him, expression unreadable. Took your time, he said flatly. Gonshu adjusted his glasses. We've brought the cards. Hand them over. But Gonshu didn't move. Instead, he replied smoothly, there's been a change in pricing. Ush raised an eyebrow. Oh? Gonshu continued, we're raising the price, 2 A-level cards. Or 2 billion jenny. Ush blinked once, slowly. Wow. 100-fold markup. Bold. Gonshu pushed up his glasses again. Well, aside from the muscle enhancer, only I hold this card now. If you want it. This is the only way. Ush smiled coldly. We're not exactly strapped for cash. But getting extorted leaves a bad taste. Gonshu faltered slightly but remained composed. Take your time to think. The price may go up again. That's fine, Ush said, waving dismissively. You can leave. And Gonshu did. Ush watched him disappear into the distance, then muttered, "This is going to be a problem. There are 3 of them. If I kill only one, the other 2 will retaliate. Probably by targeting Nyan." He frowned. "That means I'll need a chance to take them all down, at once." Ush wasn't the type to tolerate being taken advantage of, not even once. He had no intention of negotiating under duress. That wasn't his style. Gonshu had officially crossed a line. Ush opened his communication card and dialed Kenneth. Yeah, he was still alive. Ush had honestly assumed Gonshu and his crew would have offed him by now. The card connected quickly. "I'm sorry, Mr. Ush," Kenneth blurted immediately. "Skip the apologies," Ush cut him off. "Can you bring Gonshu and his 2 buddies together?" "What?" Kenneth was caught off guard. "Wait, Gonshu has 2 teammates." Ush replied casually, "Nothing major. He tried to raise the card price by 100 times. I didn't like that. So I'm gonna kill him. Now tell me, can you get the 3 of them in one place or not?" Kenneth was stunned silent for a moment, then said, "Yes. We can do that. Gonshu's kept us under control, but when he left just now, he left a ton of the cards behind. If we pretend to need a card exchange to remove Nen conditions," Kenneth continued, "we can lure them all out." Chapter 168. Ho ho. After hearing Kenneth's plan, Ush couldn't help but grin. "Good. Once you confirm the meeting spot, contact me right away." With that, Ush ended the call and resumed waiting. In the meantime, he continued training, practicing with his phoenix form. To be honest, the phoenix fruit was powerful. But compared to the thunder fruit, Ush found it a bit underwhelming. The lack of elemental mobility and instant movement bothered him. He missed the speed. If it weren't for the phoenix fruit's innate compatibility with his Nen, he would have switched back already. As for the soul fruit, he had no intention of touching it. Over time, Ush had realized something important: the strength of the soul fruit's ability seemed tied to the user's own soul. Big Mom's absurd powers made sense when he considered how much more developed her soul might have been. For someone like Ush, even with powerful Nen, he doubted he could bring out its full potential yet. So for now, the phoenix fruit stayed. 5 days passed. Ush got noticeably stronger during that time. Then finally, Kenneth contacted him. The transaction was scheduled to take place on the far end of the plains, in just 1 hour. Ush's smile widened. He didn't bother using a spell card. Instead, he leapt into the sky. Cray! With a cry, Ush transformed midair into a massive, green-flamed phoenix and launched himself across the sky. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Each burst of wing power covered 8 kilometers in a blink. Within 1 second, he'd crossed more than 100 kilometers, stopping at a point just 3 kilometers from the designated location. TSK. If my teleportation counted as true speed and not a spatial type ability, Ush mused aloud, I'd be breaking the sound barrier 100 times over. That kind of speed could shred someone apart just from air resistance. But alas, it's cheating. Not real speed, just distance manipulation. He chuckled to himself as his eyes scanned the far side of the plains, watching and waiting. Dozens of minutes passed. Then, finally, Gonshu, Shabu, and Bala arrived. Right on time, Ush said with a grin. As soon as the 3 touched down, green flames surged around Ush's hands, and in one smooth motion, he launched 2 flaming bursts toward Gonshu's and Shabu's temples. Simultaneously, his right foot flared up as he delivered a flaming roundhouse straight at Bala. Boom boom boom. 3 explosions rang out almost simultaneously. Thud, thud, thud. The 3 members of the bomb squad were sent flying, slamming to the ground like lifeless dolls. Kenneth and the others, watching from a distance, were completely stunned. Kenneth, realizing what had happened, felt his heart racing. He killed all 3 of them. Instantly? Unbelievable. But just as Ush turned to leave, a surge of dark energy erupted from the bodies of Ganshu, Shabu, and Bala. Post-mortem Nen. Dark, heavy aura shot into the sky, thick enough to choke the air around them. Ush's pupils narrowed. TCH, post-mortem Nen. He didn't know their exact ability, but he did know one thing. Post-mortem Nen could be far more powerful than what a user could manifest while alive. Then, beep 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 beep. Rapid, synchronized beeping erupted all around. Kenneth and his team looked down in horror to see. Gigantic bombs had appeared on each of their bodies, pulsing red with deadly countdown timers. 3 seconds? It says 3 seconds, someone shouted in panic. What? No, I don't want to die. Help. Boom 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 boom. A devastating series of explosions rocked the plains. Fire and smoke roared upward, blotting out the sky. From his distance, Ush exhaled and watched calmly. He hadn't been caught in the blast. It was clear now, Ganshu and the others had used post-mortem Nen to enhance their bombs, turning their deaths into a suicide attack. Unfortunate for Kenneth and his group. But Ush? He had nothing to do with that. If anything, Kenneth had been careless. Shaking his head, Ush turned and leapt into the sky once more, shifting into phoenix form. With the help of his distance ability, he streaked across the sky like a comet, and within a second, he was back at his home in Macedora. Nyan. Let's go. Time to collect the beautiful skin hot spring. He sounded as casual as if he were announcing lunch. Nyan ran out, eyes wide. Huh? I thought we couldn't get it. Ush grinned. We couldn't. But now we can. Humph, serves them right. Trying to extort us? They deserved it, Nyan huffed, then grabbed Ush's arm. Come on, let's go before some other jerk tries the same thing. Ush couldn't help but chuckle. He'd only seen Nyan this fired up when someone threatened her collection. Clearly, that spa card really mattered to her. Smiling, Ush followed close behind, determined not to disappoint her. Chapter 169. Ah, this hot spring really is amazing. Nyan beamed, relaxing in the warm water of the beautiful skin hot spring. Then she turned and called out to Ush, who was standing outside. Ush, you're really not coming in? I'll pass. What would I do with skin as smooth as a baby's? Ush waved her off with a chuckle. Nyan blinked, then genuinely thought about it. That's true. With that, she turned her attention back to enjoying the soak. While Ush and Nyan were relaxing peacefully, the atmosphere on Greed Island had taken a sharp turn. The once calm player base was thrown into chaos. Suddenly, dozens of high-value cards appeared unclaimed. The sheer number alarmed players, everyone assumed it meant a massive slaughter had occurred. Panic spread quickly. Players with even a few valuable cards began hiding, fearing they'd be the next to be hunted. Card trading froze. Cooperation stalled. No one wanted to be the next corpse. Days passed in this tense silence. But eventually, some players noticed something odd. Despite the mass panic, no more deaths had followed. Suspicion turned into cautious curiosity. Was it just an isolated incident? Testing the waters, a few players resumed collecting cards. When nothing happened to them, the others slowly followed suit. Soon, the situation on Greed Island returned to relative normalcy, except now, 2 entire teams were missing. Ush wasn't paying much attention to the broader player base. By now, he had no interest in buying cards from anyone. If he needed something, he'd just go get it himself. What mattered most to Ush right now was his manifested Nen energy. After repeated tests and calculations, he was now absolutely sure, his manifested Nen energy had passed 10,000. And that wasn't even the best part. His growth hadn't slowed. If anything, it was accelerating. The phoenix fruit was proving far more vital than even Ush had expected. At this rate, there was no reason to stop practicing. All he needed to do was maintain a steady state of ken, or ko. Even if it consumed his lifespan in the long run. Who cared? A few years lost was a small price to pay for true immortality. And if he couldn't manifest something like the peach of immortality, surely something like the chakra fruit wasn't out of reach. He was confident. Ridiculously confident. Sleeping girl is so damn useful, Ush muttered, gazing at the card. Should I clear the game just to take her out with me? He didn't care about most cards, but this one was different. This one mattered. Without it, his current training intensity would be impossible. That made it more valuable than any S-grade ability. Still, he hesitated. Maybe not. I'll graduate in another month anyway. I can still return to Greed Island to train anytime after that. This card might be powerful, but Ush wasn't naive. He wasn't convinced that relying solely on a cheat like Sleeping Girl would give him infinite growth. There had to be limits. And Ush suspected those limits weren't artificial, they were biological or even spiritual. Maybe it's something tied to the Dark Continent. He mused, rubbing his chin. After hitting 10,000 points of manifested Nen, Ush had made another realization. With just ko alone, he could now deliver a punch that surpassed Yuvagin's Big Bang impact. Not because he had more raw power than Yuvagin, after all, enhancers like him could double their output, but because Ush's base level had become absurd. He was rapidly closing in on, if not surpassing, the so-called top tier of Nen users. And he hadn't even mastered it yet. The bigger the numbers get, the bigger the gap becomes. He laughed, doing the math aloud. 2 by 2 and 3 by 3. That's only a 5-point difference. But 20 by 20 and 30 by 30? That's a 500-point difference. It scaled fast. And when you considered Nen techniques like reinforcement, multipliers, elemental damage, a small boost in raw energy could lead to massive increases in overall attack power. That's when Ush chuckled. Ha! If I keep going like this, the master level threshold might not even take a few more months. But raw power wasn't everything. He knew that too. Fights aren't games. They're not just about numbers. Hunter x Hunter battles were won with strange, clever, and devastatingly specific Nen abilities. One clean hit from an ability like Little Flower, or Krillow's Convert Hands, and it wouldn't matter if you had 10 times the energy. Even a weak ability, with the right timing, could end a battle. That's why Ush had no interest in testing the upper limits just yet. For now, he'd keep grinding. Another month passed. Ush kept training. No one dared challenge him. Nothing new disrupted their lives. His manifested Nen had climbed to 11,000, and his potential energy broke 100,000. Now, the 3-month period he had agreed upon with Patera had officially ended. His time on Greed Island had entered a new phase, Chapter 170. At this time, Ush's home had expanded into a sprawling estate. He had even officially opened a hotel lobby. Inside it, Patera paced anxiously as he spoke to one of the staff. "Excuse me, has Mr. Ush returned yet?" "I'm sorry," Arisa replied politely, "we haven't been able to contact Master Ush. All we can confirm is that he hasn't come back." "I see. I'll wait." Patera nodded and moved to a nearby sofa, several stern-faced bodyguards standing silently behind him. By now, Ush's name had reached legendary status. Anyone remotely familiar with the underworld or Greed Island had heard of him. Even those outside the game who followed Nen users had picked up his name through gossip, message boards, or whispers around town. Though he wasn't a celebrity in the public eye, among experienced players and information brokers, Ush was infamous, and not necessarily in a way you could talk about publicly. Batera, being a globally influential figure, had naturally done his homework on Ush. And perhaps that was exactly why he placed so much faith in the man. Because behind this meeting was a desperate hope that Ush could save the love of his life. 3 months ago, he had made a deal with Ush, not just to beat the game, but to heal someone beyond medicine's reach. Time passed slowly. Despite his wealth and power, Batera didn't grow impatient. He had arrived early, well ahead of the appointed time, simply because he couldn't sit idly by while hope was within reach. Every time he looked at Alice's sleeping face, time crawled. Just as the deadline neared and disappointment crept in, a voice echoed behind him. "You shouldn't have come so early." It was Ush, arms crossed, eyes slightly annoyed. "What do you mean by that?" Batera frowned, confused, and a bit offended. Ush sighed. "I meant I was going to handle this later. But since you're already here." He turned and gestured toward the exit. "Let's go fix your girlfriend." Batera's eyes widened. "You mean, you can really save Alice?" "You'd better move fast," Ush grunted. "I'm short on time." Batera didn't question him further. "I've already arranged an airship. It's waiting." He would have crawled to Ush if that's what it took. If this man could save Alice, he didn't care about attitude, manners, or pride. Ush rolled his eyes slightly. "TCH. Simp." Still, he followed. After instructing Arisa and Sakuragi to handle things while he was gone, Ush boarded the airship with Batera and took off toward the man's private estate. During the trip, Ush didn't offer to fly there directly using Nen or teleportation. Sharing such abilities with some old man. Gross. He wasn't about to carry another grown man through the sky like some magical girl sidekick. Several hours later, the airship finally landed at Batera's castle. They didn't waste time with small talk or pleasantries. Ush followed Batera directly to the room where his lover lay unconscious. There, on a large bed, was Alice, pale, unmoving, but still alive. Tears welled up in Batera's eyes as he looked to Ush. "Please." But Ush wasn't listening. Instead, he was chewing on some fruit. "Huh?" Batera blinked. "What are you?" Before he could finish, Ush casually flicked a glowing green orb of Nen toward Alice. Light surrounded her. "What was that?" Batera asked breathlessly. "She'll wake up in a few minutes," Ush replied. "We're done here." And with that, Ush vanished. One flash of movement later, Ush was far outside the estate. He popped another strange fruit into his mouth, and in the next moment, he transformed into a streak of light. Within seconds, his body soared across the continent, returning to the skies above York New City. Then, as if nothing had happened, he strolled back into his room, gave a brief update to Arisa and Sakuragi, and re-entered Greed Island. By now, Ush's manifested Nen energy had reached 11,120 points. With that level, he could maintain a high-tier miracle fruit for roughly 180 minutes, inactive, or 18 minutes, active use. This wasn't news to him. What was news, however, was a problem he'd recently encountered. To create the fruit that healed Alice, he had to manifest a specific ability type. But doing that on the spot? It turned out to be painfully difficult. Even if he had the mental energy to do it, actually landing the right miracle fruit by random manifestation was like playing the lottery. Not only did he need the right power level, he had to hit the correct effect by sheer chance. And to solve Batera's problem, Ush had needed a fruit tailored for illness. He tried dozens of times. Failed. Over and over, he got the wrong result. In frustration, his body ignited with green flames, scorching the furniture around him. "No. This won't work," Ush muttered, rubbing his temples. "I need a shortcut. A rule. Some kind of filter. He took a breath. Then made a decision. I'm adding a new condition to my miracle fruit. Chapter 171. When manifesting the fruit, you can choose one that requires less aura, chi, than you currently have. If the selected fruit costs less than twice your aura, you're guaranteed to obtain it. This is the new condition of Ush's Nen ability, Miracle Fruit. To put it bluntly, it's just using aura in exchange for certainty. In other words, Ush could previously manifest a miracle fruit worth 10,000 aura, but if he chooses one worth only 5,000, he's guaranteed to get exactly what he wants within that range. That's how the healthy fruit, which Ush designed for healing, came into being. Healthy fruit, a fruit that adjusts the body into a healthy state. As long as there are any illnesses or abnormalities, the affected tissues can be removed, and the body restored to full health. While it consumes a lot of aura, it's a very useful condition, and Ush is quite satisfied with it. With this ability, things would become much more convenient for Ush. Just as Ush returned to Greed Island to continue training, Batra Castle was bursting with liveliness. A castle that had long been dark and gloomy suddenly felt full of vitality. And all of this was because of one thing: Alice, the mistress of the castle, had finally awakened. Batra was overwhelmed with happiness and excitement upon her recovery. The two spent time together. Batra expressed how much he missed her, while Alice listened with a smile. But as Batra looked at Alice's youthful face and remembered all the pain she had endured in the past, a wave of sorrow struck him. He picked up the mirror by the bedside and looked at his reflection, his expression slowly turning resolute. He had to become young again. Only then could he stay by Alice's side for a long time. Greed Island. If I can clear it, I can become younger. Even though I heard Ush might not clear it. I can't take any chances. Maybe I should raise the reward, Batra said to his reflection in the mirror, voice full of resolve. And with that decision. The very next day, even Ush heard the news: the prize for clearing Greed Island had been raised to 80 billion. Oh! After healing his lover, the prize money has increased. Looks like there's still something Batra wants from this island, Ush murmured as he passed through a tunnel. He shook his head afterward, dismissing it from his mind, and continued training. Then he turned to Nyan, who had grown significantly stronger over the past few months of training, and said, "Get ready. We're heading back in a few days. Graduation exams are coming up. If you're not planning to train, then hit the books." Huh? Graduation exam? Nyan looked stunned. Clearly, she'd forgotten about it. Yeah, the graduation exam. You should start taking it seriously now, Ush said with a helpless sigh. He wasn't worried about himself anymore. But when it came to Nyan pouted. Studying is such a pain. Maybe I'll just skip university altogether. What pain? Didn't we bring back the memory helmet? If you study with that thing, everything sticks, Ush replied, sounding a little disheartened. But that helmet is ugly and bulky. It's hard to read while wearing it, Nyan replied in disgust. Ush completely agreed with her. He had relied on his own natural talent to learn and had never worn the memory helmet either. Besides, that helmet had a fatal flaw. It really did make you remember everything. But that's also the problem, it makes you remember everything. Not just academic knowledge, but literally everything you did while wearing it. Scratching your head, gazing out a window, stretching. Whatever it is, you'll remember it. So unless you're perfectly focused, it'll record a bunch of nonsense that sticks with you for a long time. Ush had tried it once. After putting it on and just glancing sideways, the resulting mental image still hadn't faded. That wasn't good. The brain becomes cluttered with unnecessary memory snapshots. Please give me flowers. The helmet had forced Ush to memorize a completely useless scene, which was extremely annoying. That's why the memory helmet was only suitable for people with extremely strong concentration. Someone like Kurapika, for example, could use it in a room filled with books and absorb everything. Thinking about how impractical the helmet was, Ush gave up trying to force Nyan to use it. Fine, forget it, Ush sighed. Looks like I'll be going to university alone, he thought wistfully, completely unaware that he wouldn't be attending college at all. In the blink of an eye, 4 days had passed. Ush had grown even stronger, and more importantly, the exam was tomorrow. To save time, Ush took Nyan directly from Greed Island back to Ukexin City. Ding! As soon as they returned, Ush received another bank notification on his phone. Your account ending in 0001 earned 4,862,847,366.42 at 10:23 a.m., June 7, 1999. Oh, another 4.8 billion last month, Ush muttered, pausing for a moment. But then he brushed it off. This kind of income had become routine these past few months. Although it didn't seem like much on paper, anyone with common sense could tell that this shampoo and Love Your Butt product was just the tip of the iceberg. They hadn't even started integrating ads yet. And even like this, they were pulling in nearly 10 billion in monthly revenue. What more could you want? Back home, Ush paused his training since the sleeping girl ability wasn't active. The non-training days felt pretty normal, but oddly enough, Ush wasn't used to it. Still, the graduation exams for him and Nyan proceeded as planned. Time flew by. Today, Ush and Nyan had just completed their current exams. Whether they'd be admitted to university would depend on the results coming out in a week. Chapter 172. Ush originally thought that his test results would only be available after a week, but he didn't realize that the results were calculated as soon as he finished each subject. Then, they were immediately sent to the 10 Dons, allowing them to see Ush's scores in each category. Every score was perfect. This made the old men very satisfied with their decision. Why was such an important entrance exam wrapped up in just a week? Because the test in Ukexin wasn't like the rigorous national entrance exams from Ush's past life. Instead, it was just a graduation test from 2 feeder schools tied to the mafia's control. You could even say it was just a final assessment, only with far more difficult papers. Since there was no need to wait for others' results to be ranked, after a brief discussion, Don 1007 decided to let Ush join the Mafia management team directly. What? Ush stared at the ornate invitation in his hand, perplexed. You're seriously asking me to serve as a cadre now? He muttered suspiciously. He looked over the invitation letter again. This thing seems legit. After confirming its authenticity, Ush was truly shocked. He never expected the 10 Dons to be this impatient. They hadn't even waited for him to finish college, or even for the test results to be officially released, before sending the invitation. It really caught him off guard. Well, if that's the case, I guess I can forget about university for now. Becoming a cadre and handling management and business instead. I see where this is going, Ush said with a light shake of his head. Despite saying this, Ush had no intention of refusing the offer. He accepted it without hesitation. They just want me to help them make money, right? Fine. No problem. Though, Ush was curious how the 10 Dons would divide the profits. Thinking about that, his eyes narrowed slightly. He had no issue making money for others, especially people who had helped him before, so he didn't feel much resistance. But there was one thing he would never accept, being treated like a fool. If they really expected him to work for free, just to receive a measly monthly salary. That kind of treatment? Absolutely not. What, did the 10 Dons think they had granted the Ush family a divine favor that could never be repaid? So, how are they planning to distribute this? Ush muttered with a grin. The news that Ush had become a cadre spread like wildfire. Everyone in Ukexin connected to the Hay family heard about it. For a moment, most were in disbelief, and some even cursed aloud. In truth, the only people who reacted with excitement were those who had personal ties to Ush. Because of this sudden promotion, Ush had to temporarily put his Greed Island training on hold. During this time, he needed to make an impact. Without results, his position would be unstable. Sure, Ush could use some small tricks to earn a little cash and appear productive. But that kind of halfway development wasn't impressive. On the contrary, it might spark rumors, especially considering the background of that haircare and butt brand he launched. The 10 Dons might even suspect him of hiding his true abilities. Which was actually true. TCH, looking at the current situation, I probably can't afford to keep hiding anymore. In this world, everything comes down to face, Ush muttered with a shake of his head. If he tried to lay low and play dumb, people would only talk more. So instead, he'd rather take action and shut them up. As far as face went, Ush personally didn't care much. He was the kind of guy who, if he didn't like someone, he'd just kill them. Why worry about appearances? But his family wasn't like that. He couldn't exactly kill his friends or family members just because they had something to say. Even a few offhand remarks from those close to him could end up pushing his loved ones into depression, or worse. That aside, what's the best way to start making money? Online shopping? Food delivery? Games? Movies? Shopping? No good. As he'd thought before, once the Hay family gets involved, it could easily attract the attention of global forces like V5. Food delivery? The tech gap between countries was massive. Some could handle it, but many couldn't. Games? Now that was doable. Film and TV? Also an option. But for the sake of stability, starting with games was the safest path, and could also serve as a platform to advertise the shampoo and butt lotion brand. Ush rubbed his chin thoughtfully as he analyzed the options. After thinking it through, he made a decision: enter the gaming industry first. These days, smart devices are everywhere, and there are tons of games. But the way most game companies scam their players is just lazy. That's why they don't make much. Selling point cards? What is this, ancient history? Ush said with a crooked grin. To ensure success, he grabbed some paper and began sketching out concepts. In this world, if you want fighting content, you just go to Heaven's Arena. It's all right there, he said while jotting down notes. But what if I make a game like Dungeon Fighter, except the protagonist is a hunter? Ush muttered to himself while working out game mechanics and systems. Time passed as he got lost in designing. Oh right. Since it's a game, I can design the various items to look like fruits. That way there's no issue. In fact, it might help expand my reserve of miracle fruits. Now that he had the ability to selectively choose fruits, it would be incredibly useful to enrich his miracle fruit arsenal. And if he turned all kinds of abilities into fruit forms, it could also diversify his combat skills. Yes, yes. I really am a genius, Ush said aloud, eyes sparkling. Chapter 173. Time flew by. In the blink of an eye, a week had passed since Ush launched development on his game. During that week, Ush imposed intense pressure to silence dissenters. Anyone who dared to question him was crushed, mentally, through pure aura. The first time, it was just a scare. The second time, they were forced to their knees, shaking and even wetting themselves from fear. There was no third time. Ush had only two limits. If someone crossed the line a third time, they were dead. After that, everything began running more smoothly. No one dared to obstruct his directives. Would this kind of brutal leadership make people afraid to speak up around him? Yes. Was that a problem? No. He wasn't here to make friends. He was here to manage. As long as people didn't get in his way, things would move along just fine. Within just a few days, Ush's game development team 13 was fully formed. But a new problem emerged: game development takes time. So, to speed things up, Ush posted a hiring notice on the Hunter Association's official website. He was looking for a hunter skilled in programming and illustration to help him build and launch the game quickly. And wouldn't you know it, there actually was such a hunter. The Hunter Association ran its own internal site, designed to share intel, recruit partners, and relay missions. But this wasn't just a standard tech platform. Nen-based enhancements were deeply woven into the infrastructure. The developer Ush recruited was one of those people, someone who could control data through Nen. Frankly, Ush didn't care who did the work. He just needed someone to help him cheat, in a game designed for ordinary people. Maybe it was because the task was too easy for a Nen user with digital abilities, but in just a few days, they built a full online action-adventure game called Secret Hunter. And for the first time, full platform compatibility was implemented. Whether playing on a smartphone or a computer, players used the same servers and shared account data. Unsurprisingly, the server itself was also powered and managed by the Nen-capable hunter he hired. Thanks to the supernatural properties of Nen, Ush was stunned to discover that, despite the technology in this world being far behind his previous life, Nen made it possible for even basic servers to support hundreds of millions of concurrent players. When Ush learned this, he couldn't help but twitch at the corner of his mouth. But thinking about it more clearly, Nen could already influence time, space, and abstract concepts. Increasing server capacity didn't seem like such a big deal after all. Once Secret Hunter became available for download, Ush launched a massive ad campaign across the internet. In less than 3 days, everyone around the world had at least heard of it. And when people heard that the game was designed by a licensed hunter, and based on hunter adventures, excitement spread fast. Everyone who had dreamed about the hunter lifestyle rushed to download it. After all, the game was free, and if it sucked, they could always uninstall it. Only, once they played it, they couldn't bring themselves to stop. They were hooked. The profession system, miracle fruits and props, flashy skills, impactful combat, mysterious dungeons, and a magical aura system to trigger techniques. All of it was irresistibly immersive. Players found themselves drawn deeper and deeper into the game. Wow! With a first-time recharge of 333 rings, you get a random skill fruit. This is awesome! Holy crap, you can win S-rank skills from the lottery? These outfits look amazing. Players were stunned by these new features. Spending just a bit of pocket money gave them access to amazing benefits, and they felt like they were winning big. Then someone made another discovery. Look! The gear and items you earn in the game can be sold for actual money. Ush had secretly built in a trading platform, powered by Nen's ability to manipulate digital systems. Here, players could sell their equipment and items for real-world currency. And it wasn't just a theoretical feature, the cash was instantly transferred to the seller via the system. That's when Secret Hunter exploded. Within just 3 days, elite players started rising in the ranks, making bank from their gameplay. More than 2 weeks passed. It was now July. Everyone paying attention to Ush was watching closely. How much money had Secret Hunter made in its first 2 weeks? Would Ush maintain this momentum, or crash and burn? The answer would define his future. In the meantime, many crime families, especially those skeptical of the gaming industry, scoffed at the whole affair. Though, notably, they only scoffed in private. They weren't dumb enough to say anything in public. By now, everyone knew Ush's profit margins were tied directly to the 10 dons. Mocking the game now would be like insulting the dons themselves. And no matter how dumb you were, no one wanted to go that far. Besides, those with sense had already been reminded, Ush's success directly affects their survival. In this tense atmosphere, Ush's finance team was frantically crunching numbers. Others, some nervous, some excited, some calculating, some envious, waited in silence. Until finally, a young woman from the finance department ran over, breathless, holding the final report. Chapter 174. How much? Ush put down the cold drink in his hand and looked over at the finance department. Mr. Ush, over the past half month, our total revenue has reached 835.4 million, the finance officer said, unable to hide their excitement. Everyone nearby was stunned by the number. It wasn't that the figure itself was massive, rather, it was average, far less than what had been earned through the shampoo and butt lotion venture. Immediately, some people began to murmur doubts. The employees who had once been terrified of Ush now glanced at him with gleeful eyes, as if thinking, look who's having a bad day now. Ush paused and asked, all right, 800 million. What about sales in the last 2 days? Yes, Mr. Ush. Yesterday's revenue was 300 million, and the day before that it was 100 million, the finance staff replied quickly. What? 300 million in a single day? That's not all. It was only 100 million the day before that, so a threefold increase in 24 hours. If we can maintain this pace, it'll be explosive. Even if growth slows and only continues at 10% per day, we're still talking over 7 billion in a month. More than 80 billion in a year. Gasps filled the room. All eyes turned to Ush, who remained calm and collected. All right, everyone's salary is doubled this month. Work hard. I don't want to hear that the 10 Dons had to personally send people down here to clean up after you. Got it? Ush walked out without waiting for a response. Long live Mr. Ush. Double salary, let's go. Haha, finally, I can pay off that loan. Ush's words didn't frighten anyone, they were all motivated professionals. Warnings weren't necessary. If you didn't have the work ethic to match, this job wasn't for you in the first place. As soon as the financial report was finalized, it was sent directly to the 10 Dons. Ha ha ha. I knew that kid was a money-making machine. He pulled in 300 million in a day after just 2 weeks. If only we had brought him in months ago, we'd be swimming in money by now. He's clearly the top performer in this batch. It's not too late. This game has massive potential. 300 million a day could easily multiply. I agree. I don't fully understand this stuff, but at this rate, 2 billion a day isn't impossible. 2 billion per day. That's a golden goose right there. Right, 2 billion daily, 60 billion monthly. 720 billion a year. For a moment, the 10 Dons were overcome with awe and anticipation. Then one of them raised the obvious question. So, how much do we pay the kid? The room went silent. 10 seconds passed. Give him a raise. What's he getting now? 500,000 a month? Bump that to 5 million. That's it? Just a little salary increase? Shouldn't we give him a percentage of the game's earnings? If you want to split revenue, split it from your own share. What's that supposed to mean? This is everyone's business. We all agreed on a 10% cut each. If we're doing this fairly, let's each give up 0.1% and give the kid 1%. That way he'll stay motivated. Humph. Sure, but even 0.1% of 720 billion is 720 million. Hurts to think about. Then vote to take it out of mine and be done with it. Bang. If no one's willing to sacrifice, then let's just forget the cut, but we must raise his salary. Let's make it 10 million. Agreed. And so, the discussion about Ush's pay came to an end. Ush found out shortly afterward. TCH. So greedy, Ush muttered with a fake smile and dead eyes. I thought maybe I'd get 3%. Even 1% wouldn't have surprised me. But just raising my salary to 10 million? He chuckled coldly. They might not want to give him more, but that didn't mean he would stop taking. After all his hard work, being underpaid was insulting. His smile faded. His warmth faded. And his enthusiasm for helping the 10 Dons disappeared entirely. Still, Ush had no intention of giving up. But he did begin delaying many of his original plans. Even so, Secret Hunter's cash flow only continued to surge. Just like the old men had predicted, within 2 more weeks, the game had indeed reached 2 billion in daily income. And it continued climbing. The 10 Dons were delighted. Meanwhile, Ush's salary was raised again, to 12 million. Humph. That's a lot, Ush said flatly, his expression unreadable. Then, without hesitation, he jumped back into Greed Island to continue his training. Forget it. I'm done reminding them. Let them rot. Once one of the 10 Dons is killed, I'll start recruiting everyone I need and make my move, Ush muttered, channeling his aura calmly. Time passed steadily. Since the rise of Secret Hunter, the world had gained a new obsession. Every day brought fresh discussions, updates, and excitement. Players were having fun. The 10 Dons were having fun, because they were getting rich. And even if Ush didn't find the money side of things particularly fulfilling, he did enjoy his training. Whenever he wasn't managing the game, he was immersed in Greed Island. His strength had increased again this month. Not by a lot, but steadily. And that steady growth. It was addictive. Chapter 175. That's right, over there. Don't mess it up. If you screw around, your wages are getting docked later. Where are the bouquets supposed to go? Dad, has the priest not arrived yet? It was July 15th. In Ush's former life, this day marked the Ghost Festival, but in the Hunter x Hunter world, it had become his wedding day. The commotion just now came from Uday, who was busy organizing the ceremony. Originally, Ush and Nyan were supposed to marry right after graduation, on the day their results came out. But the 10 Dons had called Ush in to become a cadre, and a major moneymaker, right then and there. So, the wedding had to be postponed. Until now. It couldn't wait any longer. If they delayed it into August, Ukexan City would become swamped with tourists. Too many people. No space for a proper celebration. Marriage, huh? First time for me, Ush muttered sentimentally, adjusting his black suit. Shaking his head, Ush went through the various rituals and procedures of marriage, guided by friends and relatives. It wasn't exhausting, just a bit boring. It felt more like everyone else was having fun, not him. Though tempted to complain, Ush held back in the end. Time passed quickly. Before he knew it, it was nightfall. The wedding ceremony was over. Now, Ush lay beside his new wife Nyan in their wedding room. Ugh, so boring, Nyan muttered, sprawled on the bed. I thought getting married would be exciting, but this was such a letdown. Yeah, Ush nodded. Didn't expect it to be such a dull event. Without waiting for her reply, he added, but it's fine. We've got a whole month for our honeymoon. Want to travel together? Really? Nyan looked at him in surprise. She knew Ush had been training hard. A month was enough time for him to improve significantly, and she didn't want to hold him back. It's fine. Right now, I'm in a state of adjustment. Growth won't come fast anyway. Missing a bit of time won't hurt. Besides, we can bring the game console with us. While you're sleeping, I can still log in and train a bit inside the game. I just need to maintain my current state, Ush said, shaking his head lightly. He sighed internally. Originally, he thought that acquiring the Phoenix Fruit would skyrocket his Nen capacity, maybe even letting him surpass the Chimera Ant King quickly. But reality proved otherwise. After his manifested Nen reached 11,000 units, progress significantly slowed. At this rate, it would take serious time to push that number to the theoretical human limit. Of course, The phoenix fruit wasn't useless. Unlike manifested nen, which required mental strength to develop, potential nen relied entirely on life energy. So while his manifested energy had stagnated, Ush's potential energy had skyrocketed. Now, his potential had exceeded 130,000 Kai, an incredible feat, far surpassing the usual ratio where potential energy is about 10 times the manifested value. And the gap was still growing. He had no idea how far he could eventually go. And that was before he even awakened the full abilities of his Zoan fruit. Once he awakened it, harnessing the immense vitality of both beast and phoenix, Ush believed he could rival the Ant King instantly without any additional training. But awakening a Zoan-type devil fruit was no easy task. It sounded simple. But executing it gave him a headache just thinking about it. Awesome. When do we leave? Nyan asked excitedly. Her joy didn't match that of a newlywed woman, it was more like a girl going on vacation. Then again, she was just 18. It was a bit much to expect instant maturity. Tomorrow, Ush grinned. He didn't overthink it. He said goodbye to his family, packed a backpack with his game console, various cards, and his phone, then headed out with Nyan to travel the world. Ush took her everywhere. To deep mountains and dense forests, scorching deserts, vast oceans, hidden realms, and even restricted areas. Everything he could find on the map, he wanted Nyan to see. Because they had ways to bypass travel time, they were able to visit far more places than a normal couple ever could. Meanwhile, back in Ukexen, the success of Secret Hunter was still the talk of the town. Originally, Ush's plan was to release new cosmetics or gear every 2 weeks, 3 items at a time. But the 10 Dons, smelling too much profit, forced an update. They shortened the release cycle to 1 week and increased the output to 6 items per update. In just a month, the content rate had quadrupled. It overwhelmed players, who struggled to keep up. This might not have been a problem if handled with care and balance. But Old Man Shi and the others had no idea how to balance a live service game. And the employees under Ush didn't dare defy the 10 Dons' orders. The result? Yes, the new cosmetics were stunning. But the Dons had the nerve to attach percentage-based damage bonuses to the outfits. Immediately, players of Secret Hunter were furious, accusing the game of pay-to-win abuse. But all complaints were dismissed with cold, official responses. This misstep caused the reputation of Secret Hunter to plummet during Ush's honeymoon.